Have you noticed there's a massive influx in the amount of people that identify as libertarian these days?
Yes.
There's something to that. And
I think it's
like,
weird to begin with that the president is on Fox News. Like that did Barack Obama ever call into any?
No, bro.
That's really weird.
Come on. Social media companies got a hold of it. And
you're going down, Zuckerberg. Just kidding.
He might be.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we are back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
This is Friday, October 4th, 5:23 p.m., episode 70.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary on all the... oh, man, see what happens when I go off script? On all the... I even lost my spot on all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports that you can handle. And the best part about the whole deal, it's all built from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. So come down and join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and continue our endless efforts to bridge the gap between people and information. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Colin.
I'm Donovan.
Was it good for you? And coming up on this week's show, we have We got a Houston police officer goes to jail for murder. We've got the Washington state government attacks the vaping industry in a pretty heavy-duty way.
And maybe the federal government.
Yeah, and that's... let's not
he keeps talking about that shit.
Let's not bring up that nightmare. But, of course, the elephant in the room, if you will, and that's not a pun just because he's a quote-unquote Republican, but we're going to be talking, of course, about the Trump, Ukraine, and Impeachment Inquiry whirlwind.
Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and all the shit.
And China now, apparently.
Yeah. Hillary Clinton in 2016, you know?
Yeah, and the server. We found the server. Oh, wait, no, this is just a conspiracy theory?
Got him.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a great show. We're so glad you're with us today. What are we drinking today? We're drinking, what do we call this? Space Blood?
Space Blood.
We couldn't remember what it was called, but it's a mixture of two different beers, and it's like our favorite thing on the planet besides talking to you guys every week. Oh, we should do housekeeping again.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So we are, sweet. We talked about this in a pre-show as well, but if you did not catch the pre-show, which you absolutely should, definitely. We are looking like we are going to move towards an every other week podcast schedule. So they'll still come out on Mondays. They're just going to come out every other week. Excuse me. In the opposite weeks, we are going to actually be putting out blog posts, audio blog posts. We're going to figure out exactly how that's going to be done. But with it every other week, we're going to actually have time to do that. It will work. We promise that you'll have content. We're not going anywhere. As talked about in the pre-show, you guys are incredible. We're, still seeing growth that's like consistent, and it's awesome.
And that's all you.
Yeah.
But we got to keep it up.
Especially because Podcoin just went under. RIP Podcoin.
Oh, yeah.
So, just do everything you can. Just help us out. Just share it and just let people know, and just keep talking, commenting, rating, reviewing. It helps other people see it. It's awesome. So thank you guys. And keep it up.
Absolutely. And on that note, I completely neglected, because we started to get, off track on the podcast or on the pre-show a little bit. So I wanted to talk about Podcoin and just some of the stuff happening in the realm of audio entertainment, if you will, in the podcast sphere, right? And I think it even speaks a little bit more to social media and stuff too. But Podcoin, as you alluded to earlier, went down the end of September. I think their final day was like the 24th or something like that.
Something sad.
Fucking surprise, because as awesome as it was for us and exposure and all this great stuff, and if you are here from the artist formerly known as Podcoin, welcome to whatever other podcast platform you're on. And I'm sorry you're probably having to hear ad reads on all your other favorite podcasts, but we know we are your favorite, so I don't feel that bad. But we got a Skype call?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, Jordan. You're on the podcast.
Yeah, we're recording the podcast right now.
Hi, Jordan.
Hi.
Honestly, my phone was in my pants.
Oh,
I tummy dialed you.
well,
You got butt dialed, bro.
thanks for joining the show. Do you have anything that you want to say before you leave?
I'm really confused why your voice was coming out of my pants.
You're so funny.
Oh, thanks.
Oh,
Well,
we
I'm
love
finishing
Jordan.
shopping now, so I'm going to go get in line.
Woo! And that.
We'll have a good time, guys.
All right. Love you.
Love you, bye.
Bye.
See, this is why you choose Salt of the Streets, because I will pick up any phone call.
Yep.
All right. Don't tempt me with a good time.
Even if you're calling us from DC, I'll still peck that shit up.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
So Podcoin.
Yes.
Podcoin had 0 ad revenue intake.
Yes. If
Right.
you never, just for background, if you never used
Yeah.
Podcoin, it was an app that we were using where you could go on there. We also promoted it. If you listen to the podcast, you heard the ad read that Colin did a great job on, where you could go on there and you would get virtual coins for listening to podcasts, and you could turn in those coins for gift cards, or you could donate them for different things. I donated all of mine to animals.
Yeah.
Food, a shitload of calories of dog food is what I donated. And so it was cool. What is it? It's 106,460 calories of dog food I
Look at
donated. It was 5,323 Podcoin that I had.
Oh.
Yeah, I was balling out. I was working towards 10,000 because I was going to get a fucking $50 Amazon card, but instead donated all of it to the animals because animals are awesome. And
You
the dog
are a saint.
And the dog that was on there was this little black lab puppy, and it was so fucking
adorable.
cute. I really want a chocolate lab. That's like a chocolate lab and a German short-haired pointer. Something about a brown dog, you know? I love a brown dog. I don't know what the deal is with
Fucking
that,
racist is what you are.
but- Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, because the German pointers are even like brown and white, you know?
Yeah.
But I've
No, they're cool looking dogs,
something
man.
about a brown dog.
Yeah. We had a chocolate lab who is no longer with us, unfortunately. It was a family dog. Actually, Chloe, show pup, that is one of her pups.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's adorable.
And poor Chloe's getting old, man. She's starting to show her age. She's getting
Chloe
arthritis
girl.
real bad.
Yeah.
She's as old as my marriage is. We got her. That was part of our wedding present. Was we got one of the puppies from the litter.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it's adorable. So she is.
Dogs are the best.
I think was it 8 weeks? I think is when you do the handoff from the mom and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So she's 8 weeks older than our marriage is.
Wow.
So it's adorable.
Yeah.
What was it? Oh, Podcoin. So yeah, this Podcoin thing was great. It was cool because the point accumulation was pretty slow, but at the end of the day, all you're doing is listening to podcasts, and so
If you
who
kept
cares if it takes
kept
you a
the
year?
streak going,
Yeah.
then it was like 2 coins for every 10 minutes, which was actually a pretty good rate. But it did cap you out at 720 minutes a day. I realized that's the most Podcoins you could earn was, whatever, like 36 or something like that a day.
Oh.
And it caps you out at a certain point. I noticed that.
Only you would be able to tell that.
Only I would know, but it caps you out. You don't get 10 hours.
I was like,
if
who
you
else
listen
has 10
straight for
hours
10 hours.
today?
However many hours 720 minutes is. Or,
God, I miss listening to podcasts for 10 plus hours a day.
it's kind of rad.
It is.
Sometimes I
got
run out,
So many audiobooks I went through because I would listen to, this was back, I mean, we had
It can cost
probably
a lot of money.
half the podcast load that we have nowadays. you know?
Yeah.
And we'd run out like part way through. I mean, we'd have the
Definitely halfway through the week.
yeah, because we have our dailies that we'd hit, but that's over and done within an hour.
Especially then it was only like 2 or 3, and you'd have to listen to like the whole BBC podcast just because that one's like 50 minutes,
Yeah.
just to so you're listening to shit you don't even care about.
Because they always
just to
have a
stretch
puff
it out.
piece at the
Yep.
end, and I'm
You're
like, I don't care
just don't
about
give a shit. Yep.
saving the gorillas in the Congo.
Yeah. It's awesome,
I mean, I do.
but- That's not the example I would have used,
It's like,
but
that's not why I'm here, though.
yeah,
I'm just
there's
saying.
some shit I just didn't care about.
Yeah. Yeah, some of it was pretty weird, but
Yeah.
I just knew it was inevitable. I had a note I told you I had written down like a month ago, and I just kept meaning to bring it up. And it was like Podcoin business model. Like, and the only thing I can assume was they were getting some kind of kickback from Amazon and Beats or whatever those headphones were like the ultimate prize.
Yeah.
Just to keep them afloat. But there's no money in it. How are you supposed to run a platform without some kind of revenue system in place, right? And that gets me thinking.
Because there was no ads.
No.
Just again, for anybody who never used it, there was no ads on there that were Podcoin ads. We never had to pay to be on there or to get promoted or anything. So
like there's no money.
I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah. But that started to get me thinking again. And I am of the mindset now, and I might have been listening to too much of The Portal this week. They had that on Andrew Yang, by the way. So Eric Weinstein and Andrew Yang on the podcast together for an hour.
All right. That I might have to listen to this. Yeah, that I might have to listen to.
But, it comes up that this ad model that we see on social media, we hear in podcasts, The Daily is notorious these days about that.
Fuck The Daily.
And we're going to segue into The Daily because it's quick after this. Because we have thoughts on where The Daily's at these days. And so I started to think about this, right? This is it's a perverse incentive structure for a business.
Yes.
Right? To rely on other businesses interested in the content that they put out. And when you're talking about podcast platforms or social media platforms, we are the content creators that do not see a dime of the ad revenue that they make.
Yeah.
So unlike the Twitch model, which I know very little about, but I do know they have the partnership program and affiliate program, which allows you to get paid. Again, I don't know much about it, so I'm not going to talk too much, but essentially pennies on the dollar and shit. I mean, but there's nothing for the everyday user of social media. There's no payback. There's no incentive. Why are you forced to see these ads and stuff? And we find out that there's probably an unwritten amendment to the Constitution where you have the privacy of your data and the right to your privacy of the data that we didn't think about before social media companies got a hold of it. And
you're going down, Zuckerberg. Just kidding.
He might be. I wouldn't hate it at this
point. If Elizabeth Warren has
honest.
anything to say about it, he definitely is.
Elizabeth Warren needs to just go away.
I'm
done with her. But it just got me thinking, man. And this stuff is got to change because it's not able to operate at scale because these platforms have millions and millions of data points that provide input. And there's no way that you can reliably count on a particular platform to do what you think is best for your ad read or your fucking ad post on Facebook or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. There's no control. And so this has opened us up into this new era of politically involved corporations and companies because they want to pick a side of who they sell to and who buys their stuff. And, Nike getting involved with Kaepernick and stuff, and part of it maybe, and who knows, but, there's a lot of motive there that you're kind of assuming when you make these calls, but there has to be a better way to provide creators the opportunity to make a profit where a platform can still take a percentage of it. And it's very similar to maybe like a Patreon model where it's a subscription base or something. I don't know. But it's a crazy new world. And these are ideas I think people should be thinking about because the old school way of when I scroll through my Facebook feed, which is only about once a day because I can only stand so much nonsense, but half of it is ads, right? Half of what I see is ads. Why am I seeing that? I want to see the pictures my friends are posting. I'm looking for wedding pics that are, illegitimately hitting the Facebook a little too early or whatever. And, just whatever, And I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing ads for the most part. And I don't want that. And I understand that because we choose this platform of Facebook to be on and all this, we have to be exposed to that. And that's what
I was just going to say is that's like a consequence of choosing to use that platform.
Which did not exist at its inception.
Yeah.
Which is weird to think about. But
they got to make money eventually.
They do.
At a certain point.
Otherwise, they would have been a Podcoin.
Yeah. And there's a difference, I think, that I can see between just regular ad marketing and targeted ad marketing,
Yeah.
But targeted ad marketing is also based off of the things that you are liking
or talking about
or whatever, like that's based on the interest that you're putting out there,
your data.
So that's like, and whether or not it's data, because like if your Twitter is locked, I can see that, but like mine's open, So is the shit that I'm saying on Twitter, like, is that really my data? Because I'm putting it out there, into the open Twitterverse, where especially if I use a hashtag, anyone could see it at any time and could say it, and could say something to it. And I told you the shit about Kevin Smith. I got fucking 10 people on there. I don't know, 90 of them liking it. I don't fucking know who they are, and it's because Kevin Smith liked it. They saw it and they started liking it.
Kevin Smith liked it?
Yeah. That's how this whole thing happened. That's how the whole thing happened. Yeah.
That dude never ceases to amaze me.
I get really lucky, I think, at tweeting at people at the time.
Dak Shepard.
At the time
Kevin
they're
Smith.
on their phone. Like I just happen to get to them when they're actively on their phone. And I just think I have really lucky timing with that. So I appreciate it though, and a lot of it is like, I don't like plan it out, but if I see that someone is like tweeting, I'm definitely more apt to
jump on.
If I have something to say, that I'm not going to make something up to say because I see that Kevin Smith is on Twitter. But if I'm thinking about tweeting and I go on there and I see that one of the first 4 things is Kevin Smith retweeted this, I'm like, well, also he's on Twitter right now, so
I'm jumping on.
Even if he doesn't like it, he might see it and be like, hey, that's rad, So.
Do you have anything for your new segment this week?
I don't have anything. I have something we can talk about that I couldn't necessarily add into this because I couldn't draw a big enough distinction. We can talk about it. And if you want to hear us talk about more stuff like this, you can find us on our personal social media. You can find me at alpaca_Don on Instagram and at Salt of the Street on Twitter. And he is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. We have our YouTube at Salt of the Streets, our Facebook at Salt of the Streets, our Instagram at Salt of the Streets. And you can find all of that information on our
website
at saltofthestreets.com. Thank you very much. It's awesome. It's being redone. My wife's kicking ass. So with the vape ban that happened in Washington, right?
Yes.
So we can just start here because we'll start here with this and then we'll lead into actual information, right? So I've seen a lot of people like sharing shit that's like, oh, so heroin and meth is okay in my state, but flavored vapes are not.
Okay.
Right? And they're like, fucking, you can go in and like, thank God my safe injection site is now fucking vape free, and shit like that. And
I mean, that's so Northwest, though. So passive aggressive.
Super frustrating, right? Because it's, if nothing else, disingenuous to the argument that exists behind those things, right?
Yes.
And this is a conversation I've had with a couple of different people, and I don't feel goes over well every time, right? Or really any time other than talking to you about it. When you're talking about drug addiction and trying to deal with drug addiction, no one knows how to fix it.
Nobody.
Right? So there is 1,000 different ideas on what people think is the way to go, right? And part of it starts with what you think about people who are doing drugs, right? If you think that people who are doing drugs at a certain point are sick, right? and this is my personal opinion, right? There's a choice that you make to start doing drugs because you have to make that decision to pick up the pipe, to smoke methamphetamines, to slam heroin into your arm, to do any of these things that is going to fuck you up and you could get crazy addicted to. You have to make the choice to do that, right?
Yep.
There is a short window of time in which you can stop doing that before you are wrapped up in something that you are addicted to, and your biology and your chemistry in your brain has been adjusted to the point that you will literally get sick and at a certain point can die if you don't have that, right?
Yep.
And I'm not saying like, oh, fucking poor you because you're just so sick and you have a disease. You fucked yourself up, but now you have a disease, and if you quit, you'll die, right? Or you'll get so fucking sick you'll want to die, So that's how I personally feel about that, right? You make a choice, but at a certain point, you're in something that you don't necessarily have control over.
Yeah, you
right?
can't get out once you're in too deep.
So there's different ways that people think to solve drug addiction, right? Or people dealing with opioids and shit like that, right? One of them is a safe injection site, right? And along with that, like a needle exchange. And the ideas behind this, right? Before anyone's like, this is fucking stupid, it's advocating for this, right? The idea behind it. So there are grown-ass people, and you can't force anyone to get clean. If you try and force someone to get clean, they will not get clean. You have to want to be sober, or else you will not stay sober. I have never been addicted to methamphetamines or heroin. I have many family members that have more than dabbled in these things, and I can tell you, if you don't want to be clean, you cannot get clean. So the idea behind these things is we would rather you have more opportunities to realize what you're doing and turn around your life as opposed to just maybe dying, right? So we would rather you have clean needles if this is what you're going to do, because we can't stop you. We would rather you have clean needles so you don't get AIDS, so you don't get hepatitis, so you don't die, so that we don't have to further spend more money on you in the system later on, right? Because if you're addicted to drugs and you're going to get free needles, chances are you're going to have health insurance that gets paid by the taxpayers, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to safe injection sites, if you're going to do it, I would rather you not die. And there's many people who don't agree with that. If you're going to do drugs, there's a lot of people who are like, fuck them. They're making that choice. They're going to die. I understand they're making that choice. Mm-hmm. But if the idea behind it, like I said, is that you want to provide someone with the opportunity to turn their life around to get clean. And you can't do that if you're dead, right?
And there's tons of success stories of addicts that got clean and turned their whole life around.
And I know for a fact that the amount of ODs in the areas surrounding safe injection sites drops dramatically, right?
Oh, yeah.
And certainly there are people who are fucking high as shit outside of the safe injection site because they get as high as they can without dying and then leave. And they just fucking fall over sometimes and they're fucked up on the ground. That's the thing that happens. No one wants to see that. I'm not advocating for this, right? I'm not advocating for it, right? But I'm saying I'm not advocating for people being fucked up in the streets because I don't like that, right?
Yeah, it's not a good, it's bad for public safety.
But it's a difference in the way that you're looking at what's going on. And I think it is at the very least disingenuous to conflate the two things, safe injection sites and fucking needle exchanges and flavored juices being banned, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not even defending the vaping because I think it's stupid as shit. But to compare those two things, like I said, is at the very least disingenuous, also super misinformed. And I don't appreciate it. It makes me super frustrated, you know? Mm-hmm. And just speaking as someone who has family, like I said, who's more than dabbled in that shit, I would rather my family has the opportunity to get clean. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't do anything about it. There's nothing you can do besides at a certain point be like, do you? I'm not going to involve myself, but do you? Yep. But I would like to know that my sister has the opportunity to get clean. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Without I don't know, you know, and maybe that's biased because of the circumstance that I'm in and the experience that I have with it. But that's just the experience that I have that colors my opinion, that I feel if you're not you, but you audience, people listening, that, you know, people who don't agree with this, who think that's stupid, that it's advocating for drug use. I think that, this is, you know, an assumption, but I think that if you had a sibling that was deeply entangled in the weeds of heroin, you would want them to have every opportunity to turn their life around and come back, you know, because it's so different.
It doesn't define you as an individual.
It's so different. You know,
there's always a way you can turn your life around.
Yeah.
And if you just operate on the assumption that those people are lost causes and you walk away, I can understand the argument behind it, especially as somebody that is particularly fond of personal responsibility.
Certainly.
But I'm also I'm more conscious of the overall cost of what happens when you don't try to do something about it. Because literally, by the dollars, it is more expensive to have a bunch of drug addicts ODing and dying around you than it is to have a bunch of drug addicts shooting up at one spot and not dying.
Yeah.
For one, you're straining the EMS system and their whole capacity to serve their community because now their attention is solely focused in one area.
Right.
It's just, there's too many arguments against it financially. You know
and the safe injection sites, without getting, whatever, I'm not even gonna. And the safe injection sites, right? It's not like you go into a room and there's a nurse there who's just like, have fun.
You go into a room and there's a nurse there who's just like, have fun. I feel when you use drugs, they're probably talking to you actively about how this may not be the best choice to be making at that time. You have other choices. We also have, sobriety programs. We have outpatient programs, inpatient programs. There's places you can go. There's assistance you can get through the state. There's this. I guarantee it. Guarantee there's information there. There's pamphlets there. There's the information, the opportunity once inside the safe injection site to make that choice to turn around. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're just like, here you go, fucking have fun. They're there to make sure people don't die. And in the best of cases, help them try and get clean, And I think to dismiss the validity that there is to it is frustrating. Mm-hmm. And it's personally hurtful, like as somebody, like I said, who has family members who are still active in that, mm-hmm. that's personally hurtful. That's that's my family. I want them to have that opportunity, know? But
from the get-go, you're talking, this person who did this post and stuff like that, you're comparing apples and oranges here when we're talking about vaping. And it does not, there's no way to talk about the two together.
No.
There's really no, the only possible correlation is the fact that addiction is a factor.
Yes.
In some cases, depending on what we're talking about and how backwards this whole spin has gotten. But I have a friend of mine who is, we know, is pretty close to us and all this stuff, who is adamantly against vaping and is overwhelmed with joy that this proposed ban on the flavored vape products that Washington State is pursuing is happening. She's overwhelmed because she does not approve of it. She thinks it's annoying, and I don't fault her at all for that, because there's a reason I went to the Juul, because it has less of that stupid annoying cloud that went on and, this whole thing. And
it's the more adult version, but it's also not even that, because it's the more discreet version, because kids are mad into Juuls because they're more discreet and they can use them and like their parents don't know as much, and they're small mm-hmm. and they're easy to hide, and the pods are super tiny, and I think they're relatively cheap. I don't think that they're super expensive.
No, they're gettable, but man, you go broke. Just like smoking cigarettes or anything, it's expensive as hell for a reason.
I heard that one of those pods is a whole pack of cigarettes.
It's the equivalent amount of nicotine as a whole pack of cigarettes. But they also do make variety of strengths. They make a 5% and a 3%, just like in the standard vaping world with those big-ass box mods and stuff like that. You have a 0
That's the shit
nicotine.
I think is making people sick, man. We'll get to that, but...
Yeah. That's damn good for you.
Yeah.
You have the 0% nicotine, which, what are you doing? And then 3 is, you're weaning yourself off. They got 6, 12, and I think I've seen him go up as high as 24, which is...
When I was smoking cigarettes, right? I smoked cigarettes from like 15 to probably like 20, right? And... maybe like 19. Either way, like when vaping was first starting to take off, I was still when they were just tanks and like before the mods were like still a big thing, and
you always like to get close when you talk. So I'm just putting the mic where you always go.
So like before the mods and things were really big, right? I was vaping and I started at 24. This one.
Perfect.
And I started at 24 to get myself off of cigarettes.
Yep.
And then I moved down to 18 and then 12 and 6 and then down to 3 and then I stopped. And I remember when I stopped, I had a bunch of friends who were like, well, why are you stopping? And I was like, wasn't that the point? Like, I
finished.
Isn't that why we started doing this? Was to be done like consuming nicotine, and that's why I stepped down gradually. Like, I don't understand.
It's like I thought this was what we were all doing, guys.
But that was when people were first starting to like get mods and shit like that, and they're building them and stuff like that with all the coils and whatnot. And I just didn't
ordering juice from China.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual vape pens, right? So the story behind this, and we've talked about it in a couple of pre-shows pre-shows and I think some shows before, is now we are at a point where there's over 1,000 people who are sick from vaping related illnesses, right? Whether we are talking about straight nicotine vaping or, THC vaping consumption of cartridges like this, there are 1,000 people, over 1,000 people that are sick and 18 people that have died the last time that I checked. And there is a consistency. They all are vaping. And then there's a consistency that a lot of them are using black market THC cartridges, right? And I want to be very clear about that because that is going underreported. I think a lot of times you have to click on an article inside of an article to find one that says that they're black market THC cartridges, or at least speaks about it in depthly, right? So that's really important to know because it's not exactly been clear, right? A lot of people are confused because last week there was a flavored juice vape ban that went into effect in Washington state, right? Jay Inslee put his stupid fucking foot down and signed an executive order and decided that flavored juices are going to be banned, I think on the 9th or something like that. And anything that has a food derived terpene additive or any additives, I believe, is what's going on. And so there's a lot of people, like I said, that are confused as to why this is going on. The research that we've done, because I've been following this since the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's been two issues that have been conflated here into one, right? One of them is young, teens and children getting access to Juuls and vapes and shit like that are generally fruit flavored, right? Because they're more appealing. And that's, what we talked about this before. And I remember when I was young, they were banning flavored cigarettes for that same thing, that they went to straight tobacco cigarettes for the same thing, that more kids were smoking flavored cigarettes than anything else. And they're arguing they're being targeted towards youth and all this shit. So you can't buy, as of the 9th, flavored Juul pods or juices or anything in the stores anymore. Even the dab cartridges, the THC cartridges, you can't buy food derived terpene ones, but you will be able to buy cannabis derived terpenes. Terpenes, if you don't know, are the flavor chemicals inside of anything inside of food or cannabis or anything. They'll have different flavor chemicals. They're called terpenes. And so you cannot have food derived terpenes. So one of the issues is, like I said, the young people getting into the access of the vaping, and then the other side was people starting to get sick, right? And these two things happen at the same time, where states are starting to do the flavored juice bans to try and help combat youth consumption, and then people are getting sick at the same time. And because they happen at the same time,
perfect storm.
They got mixed up right into the same issue. And so now it's the flavored juices that are, that are making people sick, and this, and just the THC cartridges, not the black market. And so there's so much confusion around what's going on, but feel confident in knowing that these are two separate issues, right? They are two separate issues that warrant two separate discussions. And as far as trying to remedy either one, the executive order that just overall bans flavored vape juice and cartridges and whatever, it is not the way to go, right? So, not the way to go.
And I think, I don't know if you might have said this, I might have missed this, but so what happened here, just so we can throw out the facts here first, is
that's good.
The governor, Jay Inslee, who thank God is not running for president anymore, signed an executive order
Jay Inslee,
directing the state board of health to use its emergency authority to ban all flavored vaping products, including those containing THC, if adopted. During the health board's October 9th meeting, this ban will take effect the next day. It'll last for 120 days and has the ability to be renewed at that point. So that's what we're looking at. It isn't in place yet. We're going to be watching very, very closely on the 9th to see what happens. And knowing the state legislature as we do, this is going to pass. And because the Democrats have a very heavy majority in the state now. But so this is going to pass, and we're going to deal with the consequences afterwards. Yeah. I have already signed the petition against it.
Hey, me too.
Hey, look at that. I think you did it. And did you share?
Yes. Thank you, John. The guy whose house we got married at, John, Red. He listens to the show pretty frequently. He says he listens to it, and sometimes he wants to pull his hair out from some of the stuff that I'm saying and some of the stuff that we're saying. But he enjoys hearing it. It's
welcome to the center, baby.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy. He's very strong libertarian, very about his own shit. Don't touch my money. Don't fucking fuck with me. Just leave me alone and let me do what I want to do. So
very quick side note.
Yes.
Have you noticed that there is a massive influx in the amount of people that identify as libertarian these days?
Yes.
There's something to that.
Which is weird because I remember when I was a kid, my mom is registered as a libertarian, and that's not my mom at all, right?
Not at
She
all.
signed up as a libertarian, I think, so that she wasn't like to be in either party, but I think she kind of thought it was like independent, but at the time it was just libertarians were just dumb. Like no one understood them, and they're just like, you guys are crazy.
As a political party, they still are.
Yeah. But I think it has, as people are pulling away from the two larger political parties, they're identifying more with that they're realizing like, oh, this is kind of like a little bit of both of these things, that like, I want people to get the things that they need, but don't take too much of my money to do it.
Just leave me alone.
Yeah. And I don't touch my guns, and don't charge me too much to live on my own land, or preferably nothing at all. I'd love to pay no taxes. That would be great. So
I got a new friend that started working at the city, and I'm going to tap that resource here one of these days real soon.
Yeah.
I got to let her get ensconced in the bureaucracy, and then I got to tap that because we got some changes we got to make around
I
here.
think when a lot of people realize that libertarians are like generally in like up the alley of taxation is theft, they're like, wait, you don't want to pay any taxes? And they're like, yes. I'm like, that sounds cool. That sounds really nice that I don't have to pay any taxes.
That's appealing to a lot of people that think left and think right. Nobody wants to pay more money to the government.
Yeah.
But
I agree. There's a lot more people identifying as libertarian. He seems like he's been up that alley for a long time, but
well, good for him.
Either way, yeah, he's the one that spread it at first. Fuck Jay Inslee. I can't stand Jay Inslee.
The absolute worst. His lieutenant governor is also kind of an idiot.
Yeah.
I will say that. He was on the our favorite people of all time, the PSA guys, were recently in Seattle. Where they found a loving audience, of course, because thank you, City of Seattle, for being who you are.
We should have gone.
I didn't even know they were doing it.
I did. They've been talking about it for months. We should have gone.
I have a really hard time justifying paying them any money.
Oh, God, we would have hated it. We would have hated it the whole time. We would have had to get fucked up before we went. We would have had to go to the bar, have at least 3-4 beers before we went, smoke weed on the way there. We would have to. And then just throw cards at people and just be like, you guys are fucking socialists.
Yeah.
We're out of here. Y'all are crazy.
He was on the tail end, how they generally have a guest or something like that, or a plain interview. He was on the tail end of that show, and I fear for the future of our state.
Sometimes those interviews can be very informative, and sometimes they are very ideological. Yeah.
And it was basically just him answering a couple questions and talking about how amazing Governor Inslee is. Sorry,
sucks.
Yeah. So we're gonna find out what happens, but like you said, there's two major narrative streams here that have coalesced into one perfect storm of stupidity. And I have a problem with both of them. One of them being the children aspect.
Yeah.
The children are getting addicted to nicotine because we make unicorn hair flavored fruit juice and all this stuff, right? Well, newsflash, I'm a grown-ass man, and I vape that stuff. I used to, back in the day.
Most people do. Very few people don't.
I know some
not particularly unicorn hair, but
real hardcore, like, I don't know how I put them, rednecky, dirty, hardcore, Republican, conspiracy theorists in some
country
cases.
OGs.
That grow, that vape some pretty fruity stuff. Because it's, or the custard flavors. Yeah, because it tastes pleasant, and they don't like the taste of cigarettes anymore.
I used to really like Wondermelon. That was my favorite one when I did vape. Yeah, and that was one of the things that got me off smoking cigarettes was the taste. I didn't like the taste. I didn't like the smell. Didn't like smelling like it.
And once you go to vaping where there's like a pleasant taste and experience,
it's not good anymore.
You can't go back to a cigarette because you taste like garbage. You smell like garbage. Everything is terrible again. Like it works to get off cigarettes.
I don't think that, like you said, I don't think that it's the flavors,
that are doing it. I know
you started
I know
smoking
that
cigarettes when you were 15. I started smoking cigarettes early. I know too many of my family knows this, but early, before it was legal for me to have.
Yeah.
Banning, it's the same thing when I think we touched on this when we talked about when we raised the smoking age to 21.
Right.
You're not.
I forgot that even happened.
Right?
I forgot that even happened.
How's it feel to be an old fart?
I don't even. It's nice to not have to consider, but I forgot that even happened.
It's wild.
That is fuck. Sucks to be 18, man. There's nothing good about being 18 anymore.
You're not an adult anymore.
Officially,
except for you can go to jail.
Yeah.
It's about the only thing you could do as an adult when
you
can
enlist if you want.
Yeah, you can enlist, but you can't drink.
Still
you can't smoke. You're just kind of El Screwed.
Yeah.
Because the federal government always
move to another state when you enlist.
Yeah. Because I ran into that when I joined the Coast Guard. First unit I was stationed at was up in Alaska, and their smoking age was 19, maybe.
So you were 18 and you couldn't.
And they're like, guys, newsflash for you. We live in this state. You are not allowed to smoke here while you're attached to this unit until you're 19 years old because we obey state laws. And I was like, bro.
Like I already smoke cigarettes. Like I'm already actively doing it. What do you mean I can't do it anymore?
But ask me if that stopped me.
So like you said, I don't think that it's the flavors, right?
It's never going to stop.
I do know that there has been in the recent years, at least according to the studies that people will answer to and kids will answer honestly, there's been like a 25% uptick in kids that are using some form of nicotine, right? Mm-hmm. And I've noticed, certainly just from young kids that I know, that there are kids that never smoked cigarettes before, but they're using Juuls and shit now, Yeah. And it's like, why are you doing that, right? Part of it, I don't know enough about the companies to say that they're marketing directly towards kids, right? But I know that
I did see some Juul ads that were not directly, but you watch the video and you go, oh, that is jacked.
Well, and I know that there are like Instagram influencers, right? Like, Supreme Patty is? You ever heard Supreme Patty?
Thankfully, no.
So Supreme Patty is a guy, he like squirts lemons in his eyes and like all this stupid shit. He also sells Juul.
Tide Pod kid?
He also sells Juul wraps, like stickers to put on the outside of your Juul to make it look different, right? So he's not selling Juuls.
We're accessorizing.
Right? But kids who like to watch him do jackass style shit, they're also seeing that he's selling Juul wraps, and they're like, oh, well, I should give me a Juul, and then I can have a Supreme Patty Juul wrap. And I'm not blaming Supreme Patty, because it's not his fault this is happening, but it's shit like that.
Yeah. Shout out Supreme Patty.
Even if the companies are not marketing towards kids, they are advertising with people that are working with kids, mm-hmm. And it's however it's happening. It's and I don't know, I know this shit's not, I know this shit's not good for you. Mm-hmm. Right? It's inhaling anything is not good for you. Smoking this is not good for you. That's the only thing that is supposed good for you.
Just talking to a guy who smokes weed, doesn't vape anymore for X amount of reasons. Smokes cigars. I will, when I am at a bonfire,
cool weed cigar.
I am so fucking excited about that.
Let's do it.
And there's CBD too in there, which is going to help my back because my back still hurts like a bitch. But I have a proposition to fix this.
All right.
Because as we know, when you make something illegal, all you do is create an illegal market for something. It is not going to stop kids like me when I'm growing up from getting beer and getting cigarettes. There's only one possible fix to this. And I don't agree with it, but this is the only way that will do it. And you need to outlaw nicotine. It's the only way you can do this, because unless you make it a controlled substance that is illegal, people will still use it and get it.
Yeah.
You
can make your own. Like you can make your own juice by buying the ingredients. It's like cooking ingredients, and then you can buy the flavors and just make the shit yourself.
I had fire somewhere.
There is one
fire, but either way, because I know a guy who used to mix his vape
right
up
here.
Because he was tired of buying it, so he'd buy it in bulk.
Yep,
and he wouldn't add any flavors. He would just add nicotine and the juice. Yeah, I know. Well, he doesn't vape anymore. He was trying to get off, and that's one of the ways he was making himself do it.
Making it gross.
But the actual realistic middle ground I think we should do, much like we should be doing with pharmaceutical drugs, like they do in the UK, and make it illegal to advertise for these products. I don't think
just
you should,
as a whole.
I think you should control what's in them. I think you should regulate what's in them, and essentially the same thing that the state does with this stuff. Test it to make sure there's no pesticides and all this stuff. Make sure you know what you're getting into. Okay, you're going to get some nicotine. You're making this personal choice. Leave it up to people that want to do that.
That is, I think, the one, sorry not to interrupt you, but one of the good things about the executive order is that they will have to list every single ingredient in whatever it is that you're buying. You know, whatever dab cartridge, whatever THC cartridge, whatever juice you're buying will have a list of exactly what is in it so that you'll know, you know.
And I hate the fact that that doesn't exist now.
Right.
It's on the weed. It's on the weed. I will tell you that right now. I was looking at this thing because it's got a cool palm leaf wrap on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? And it's all pesticide free, all this good stuff. But I think that's probably a good middle ground. Make it illegal to advertise. You know, when was the last time you saw a cigarette commercial?
Right.
They don't do that anymore. You know, this is the same thing we should be doing with pharmaceutical drugs. You're not allowed to advertise. You should not be allowed to advertise for an addictive substance, a controlled substance, or whatever. You know, just it seems smart. Make it available for people that want to consume it legally. Done.
And as far as the vape ban, right? When I was talking to the woman in the weed store today, the recreational store today, she was telling me that as far as she knew, it wasn't going to affect, like we said, THC cartridges that are cannabis-derived terpene infused, right?
Yeah.
So this one is an Oregon Diesel cartridge. So Oregon Diesel is a strain of weed. So it's a distillate that they take the terpenes from Oregon Diesel and they put it in the distillate to make it delicious. So this tastes like Oregon Diesel if you were to just like eat the bud or like dab it or something. Like that's what this would taste like. So
I like that the natural terpenes.
Yes.
Because it just brings out more of like the natural flavor that's in it.
And I think I think if that's what's going to happen, I think that we'll be okay, right? If you just can't buy apple, flavored fucking THC cartridge, I think we'll be okay, right?
You know what's going to happen, though,
What
right?
concerns me is if this affects all THC cartridges, right? You're going to force a black market in an area where there wasn't one before. And it's the black market THC cartridges that are killing people, right? Those are the things that are making people really sick and that are killing people, right?
Sounds counterintuitive.
It is from what we can tell, right? I'm not a scientist. From the information that I have gathered, it is the liquid vitamin E acetate that is being mixed and cut into these black market dab cartridges that is making people sick.
I'm going to tell you what's going to blow your mind. I got a couple stories that I've gathered over the last, few weeks and stuff. It's not just that. There's more to it. Did you listen to Meat Eater with John? I'm going to pull it up because I just remember
like
John Norris.
No, it was like heavy metals and shit in there.
Yes.
There's like bad shit.
So this is a guy, he's a former game warden who started the tactical division or whatever, attacking illegal grow-ups on public lands. These dogs are barking, and I'm going to kill them before I finish this thought. But what part of the problem is a lot of the illegal THC cartridges that we're getting are also manufactured illegally from illegal grow-ops who use insanely toxic pesticides.
Yeah.
And those are also coming in to those things, and they're finding a couple of these cases. And the problem is there's no single thing that's wrong with all these cases. Every one of them is a little different, and some of them just are nicotine, and maybe somebody's lying, and some of them aren't. That dog's going nuts. I'm going to kill him. But
I can go if you want to.
I'll get it as soon as I finish my thought here.
Yep.
But I think that's what the major problem here is there's it's not just the vitamin E.
So much bad stuff.
All the other bad stuff that's going on that is caused by the illegal black market.
Yeah. So I read an article that I think was out of the Washington Post. And I think it was in California, where they bought like 13 black market dab cartridges. And then they bought a couple in the store. And all of the ones that they bought on the street had this vitamin E acetate and the heavy metals and all this terrible stuff in it, but none of the ones that they purchased in the store had any of this stuff in it, right? And we talked in previous shows about reports in Oregon that one of the people that had died there had purchased a THC cartridge for one of the recreational stores there. When the police went to find that particular product, they couldn't find it in the store, right? So when I'm reading this article about testing on these different products, they have pictures of some of these black market cartridges, and they're in legitimate looking packaging that has logos, and it looks like something you would buy in a store. So again, from what I can tell, it seems like they found a black market cartridge that looks like it was bought in a store, and so they thought it was purchased in a store, but really it's black market. So I think the big thing to take away from this is don't smoke anything you don't buy in a store, right? The CDC is telling people not to vape at all, which I think is a safe thing. If you're really concerned about it, that's a safe way to go, is to just not do it, right?
Not why I stopped vaping.
If you're concerned about it and you don't know what the deal is, the safest thing to do is to stop vaping at all, because no one knows what the actual deal is, right? Because they don't have proof, for whatever reason, there isn't proof that all 1,000 people who are sick have been using THC, right? So there is certainly an idea that most of them may be, but there is no way to prove that, right? And until then, we have to assume that there is something to the idea of vaping maybe making you sick. Whether those people are using black market juice as well, whatever the deal is, something about this is making you sick, right? I don't think that it's using one jewel that's making people sick. I think it's when you're seeing videos of kids or people using 5 joules at one time so they can blow these big ass clouds. That's going to make you sick, right? When you're inhaling lungfuls of condensed vapor into your lungs and you have 2% oxygen in there mixed with all that other shit. Do that all day, every day for months at a time. If you ask me, that might make you really fucking sick, and that wouldn't surprise me, right? So, in my unprofessional opinion, right, after all these facts have been presented, our opinions are on the back end. I don't know for sure, but it seems that it makes sense to me that you might get sick if you're using a mod all the time and you're blowing these enormous clouds. If you're doing it heavy, you might get sick from that. That
don't
might
be
a
stupid,
thing,
stupid.
That just makes logical sense to me. It also makes logical sense to me that if you're buying shit on the street and you don't know what's in it, it might make you super sick,
It's the equivalent to me of given at a bar or a club, drinking a drink that somebody just hands you. It's control over what you put in your body.
Someone you don't know.
I mean,
should trust your friends most of the time,
unless your friend is Ari Shafir.
That's
sorry,
true,
Bert Kreischer. But I mean, realistically, I am totally 100% on board as somebody who enjoys the nicotine. Just like I enjoy the alcohol, which is toxic. It is poison that I put in my body.
It's really bad for you.
It is not good for you. I make the personal choice to consume what I consume, and I know the risks inside of that realm.
Yeah.
I don't know how to tackle this because there's so much to it. There's a cultural fad sense to it. There's a youth audience aspect to it that just makes you cool.
Just use your brain. It's just, if you're not totally, again, personal, maybe people think it's judgmental.
It's hard.
If you're not smoking cigarettes, you probably shouldn't be vaping. You know? Because the purpose of vaping, the whole idea of it was to help people quit smoking cigarettes, right? Yep. If you pick up a vape when you've never smoked cigarettes, you're defeating the purpose wholly of what it was designed to do, right? That's not to say you can't do it. And that's the problem with this vape ban, is that it takes away people's personal choice of their own choice, that if you want to buy cigarettes and smoke cigarettes and fucking kill yourself, then you can do that. There's nothing like, we can't stop you from doing that, and it would be wrong for us to try and stop you from doing that, right? And that's what's wrong about this vape ban, is that it's taking people's personal choice out of their life from what they want to do, Mm-hmm. If you want to fucking vape and maybe get sick and do whatever and, whatever, that's on you. I don't care. That's none of my business.
Yeah. You want to smoke weed? Smoking weed's bad for you.
You know what I'm saying?
Because
smoking anything is bad for you. Yep.
It's bad.
But we
Mind
do it all
you,
the time.
I think the CBD aspect of this joint probably outweighs the negatives on this one. But Like I said, it's all about that personal responsibility, and that might be the little libertarian in me that yelling out loud that no, I know what I'm doing. I'm okay with this. I know how hard it is to quit nicotine addiction, to break yourself from that nicotine addiction.
It sucks.
It is not fun.
It's really hard.
I know that when I do this, I quit vaping. We might have talked about this on the pre-show a little bit, but I quit vaping not because of this action, because it's just time. I've been wanting to quit for a while. It's a crutch I don't like to have.
This is just a good time.
It's just a good time. I got some things coming up in the future that are going to necessitate me getting off of smoking any kind of product anyways, and probably get me off of the nicotine train altogether. But I'm going to start by breaking the habit of the oral fixation with the because that's a real thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's definitely a real thing.
Just a
So I'm starting with that, riding the nicotine train still, breaking the habit, the physical habit. And then I will deal with the 2 weeks of no sleep, angry at everyone, want to kill everything in sight, just pissed off at the world. And then I will tackle that then. Because I know that's my personal experience when I quit nicotine. I wake up 6 to 8 times a night. Yeah. And it is a rough 2 weeks. But as soon as that 2 weeks is over, I feel great.
I'm gravely concerned about the temperament of the community. If
I let it go out, my bad.
That's all right. Here,
I'm good.
I am gravely concerned about the temperament of the community if this is to go through, because you're gonna have a bunch of people who don't want to use tobacco flavored shit, and they're like super addicted to nicotine now, and they're gonna be really upset when they can't use it anymore. If they didn't, buy some in advance to stock up or whatever, and they just run out. Dude, they're going to be in a really bad mood, and there's going to be a lot of people in a really bad mood.
I'm telling you what's going to happen is a lot of them
violence,
are going to go back to cigarettes because you need
start smoking cigarettes.
I think everybody should go to these. I don't want to fucking do that. Whatever, who cares? The American imported Swedish product called Zyn. It's a nicotine pouch that you don't even have to spit because there's not a whole lot going on there, but it works great, handles the cravings. But I just want to tell a little anecdotal story. I work in the construction industry, right? Mm-hmm. So I deal with a lot of crusty, salty, hard-working, blue-collar Americans every day.
Crusty dogs.
That you would assume chain smoke 3 packs a day or whatever the hell you do.
Gross.
And I go to a construction site now and I see clouds just rising. Clouds rising up because these big burly dudes are smoking, or they're vaping. Yeah. Because they didn't want to smoke cigarettes anymore. And I don't fault them for that. And I think that's a great thing. It's very interesting. And I'm curious to see, because I will witness it firsthand if this ban goes into effect, if that's going to go back to cigarettes. And I think if I was a betting man, which I definitely am, I'm putting my money on everyone's going back to cigarettes again. I think they will.
Or starting cigarettes.
I don't think it's going to force people to quit. It might force a couple people to try to quit, and they're going to be like, I ain't never done this before. I'm not doing it again because this is terrible.
Yeah, not if you're mad addicted.
Yeah. I mean, and it's bad. I got to give the wife some heads up when it happens, because I am not a fun human being to be around during that 2 weeks. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but it's going to happen sometime.
One of these days?
Yeah, one of these days. Because I want to be clean for like 3 months before we start doing the baby thing.
Yeah.
Which I hit my 2-year employment history yesterday, which means it's time to start looking at mortgages.
So what are you waiting for? Like,
I'm just trying to get up out the garage.
Yeah.
It's just too tight, man.
Speaking as somebody who lives in an extremely small space.
You got a great space, though. It's like it's
But it's an extremely small space. Don't let that be a hindrance to what you're doing, because, and not to get derailed, but you have this area here that's filled with all this shit, and I guarantee you that when your wife has a baby in her, she's going to get rid of a bunch of that shit, I
don't know. She's kind of a hoarder.
I guarantee you that she's going to get rid of a bunch of that shit. And
we have been in the process of downsizing.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired of this. You know what's bad, though, is since I've gotten into the honey thing, you've seen the rack off to your left.
Yep.
Maybe I'll throw a little clip in there, the podcast right before it ends there. But
rack.
It's, I mean, I've accumulated all that since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. I mean, I got climbing harnesses. I've got hunting backpacks. I got hiking backpacks. I got my food supply. I got way too much. I got my cold weather gear, got my regular camo, my duck hunting camo. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. So I accumulate.
You're so cool.
I've just got way too much crap.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crap there. But I mean, it's all useful because it's hunting stuff, and that's important.
You got your freeze-dried meals.
But it's a thing, you know. We're looking at that. I'm very close to the housing industry and the housing markets, so I've got my eyes on a couple places, and now it's time to start making that move. And I feel once, you know, it's really funny. In the house search and all this stuff, there's a new factor to account for. It used to be like, okay, well, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? Well, I also either need a very nice detached garage or something like that, or something that's got space to it, because I need a studio space in my house.
Yeah.
And then Carolina's all open to the Twitch thing, and she's not going to want to let that go as much as she can. So I need at least an extra bedroom on a house, or an extra house somewhere where you can have a studio space.
You guys are crazy.
And I mean, we're looking at having in the neighborhood between 2 to 3 kids eventually, and I need a house that I can utilize with that in mind. So it's
I am excited for you guys to
be miserable and have a baby.
No. For you to have a kid so that
so I can call you at like 2 a.m. and be like, Donovan, I want to die.
So that you can
like, bro, that's totally normal.
Have a better understanding of the amount of time you think that you'll have.
I don't think I'm going to have any time.
The two of you together.
I know I don't have time now. And I recognize that is a massive problem when baby time comes. Because if I don't think I have time now, I'm going to be net negative for time later.
Yeah.
But hopefully, and even then,
yeah,
I will have a little bit of a difference there, because getting to the point where I think single income will be a thing that we can work with. And so that will help a little bit.
That's
but at
good,
the same
because
time, I know what you guys have gone through, and I know it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's it's totally cool. That's not going to happen. Whatever. And you're like, no, motherfucker, that's not the way it works.
Yeah. Well, and that's good because I have time because Jordan doesn't have time. You know, like that's the only reason that I have time to do things like this is
she has a full-time job
because she's taking care of Dax while
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So,
which is something Andrew Yang talks about. And I think Andrew Yang is doing something interesting. I think we're done with vaping, right?
Yeah.
We've hit vaping.
We can, do you want to...
Small segue between quick cop talk.
Yeah.
The Andrew Yang thing is an interesting thing to watch. There is when it comes to social media and the internet, you'd think he was the leading candidate because he has a stranglehold on social media. The Yang Gang is out there doing work for this guy.
Plus I get like 4 emails a day from them.
That is what the Yang Gang is all about. The Yang Gang is just a term for his I don't know what you call it, non-traditional campaign office. I mean, this is people activating and becoming and like joining the campaign because he owns the online space.
Yeah.
And you can have supporters in Cincinnati, in California, in Iowa, and all this stuff. And nobody has to go to meetings. They don't have to do this. It's all online. And he's he's in the next debate. Tulsi made the next debate, BD Dubs. Which
that's nice.
It's that's like coming up soon, right?
Yeah. I think it'll be the week that we record next.
And Tulsi's suing Google.
Really?
Did you see that?
Over like her ads not being whatever.
Yeah, it was something about her search results being downgraded or something like that. Because do you remember there was like this thing? And
Crowder was on some shit like that too. Like this last week that I was listening to, he was like, "You can go right now and try and type into Google Steven Crowder, and you know the first 10 things that come up won't even be a Steven Crowder video." And so I did that, And the very first thing that comes up is fucking Steven Crowder videos. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I was like, I'm pulling up Google right now.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I searched in YouTube and the very first things that come up are Steven Crowder videos. So I don't know why that wouldn't be the case. Like, what do you mean? You know, what's so fucked up with the things that you're watching that it skews you completely away from Steven Crowder? Because I don't watch him all the time, but I still have direct access to his videos. I don't.
Weird, you know?
And it's really weird because social media, their algorithms and stuff they affect different people different ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation altogether.
The algorithm blasts our fucking Instagram hard, bro.
Yeah. You know, you can't put a conservative hashtag. We will say that.
Fucking assholes, dude.
You can't do that. Even if you're a relative nobody.
Yep, not one.
You know?
Because you'll get fucking blacklisted.
And then as soon as I start, we put hashtag progressive, hashtag liberal, hashtag, Green New Deal, you're just getting mobbed with likes and whatever.
Not even classical liberal. You can't even use classical liberal because that's doesn't count.
You might as well be a neo-Nazi at this point. So Houston, Texas. Dallas. Damn it.
That's all right. And I know my computer's
I don't know why I said Houston.
Piece of shit, so it's restarting. So
Amber, where did it go?
Amber Guyger. Yep. So Dallas police officer, and this started 2 years ago, I believe, when this happened. Does it say?
I feel like I saw it in
maybe last year.
19 years, 2018 slaying of Botham Jean.
2018. So Amber Guyger, off-duty police officer. She worked a 13-and-a-half-hour shift for the Dallas Police Department, I believe, and then comes home to what she believes is her apartment, which is actually the apartment of a man named Botham Jean. And
one floor too low.
She claims in her testimony that she used her electronic key fob to get into the apartment, but then the door pushed open and there's a man sitting on her couch, which is not really her couch. And he gets up. She claims that she goes in and she says, "Show me your hands." And he stands up and says, hey. And so she shoots him. And he dies. And she provides limited life-saving measures, a little bit of CPR, doesn't use any first aid out of her backpack. And he dies. So earlier this week, she's found guilty of murder and is sentenced to 10 years in prison, right?
Yep.
All kinds of split reactions to this. There are people who are happy that someone is finally found guilty for slaying someone, a black person who is innocent, who has done nothing wrong, who has died at the hands of police. There's some people who don't think that 10 years is long enough. There's a lot of weird stuff about this case. Like I said, she worked 13 and a half hours. She was also having an affair, with her partner who was married. And, there's concern about how long. I'm still doing research on this, but there's concern about how long the case took and just how it happened, as far as the research. And I saw some quotes from the lead detective who said that he didn't think that she was guilty of murder or manslaughter or even a negligent killing at all. That she did, and her defense attorney argued that she did what any reasonable person would have done in that moment, So after she's sentenced to 10 years, Botham Jean's brother, he stands up, he delivers a tear-jerking testimony, about how he forgives Amber Guyger and he just wants her to be happy and go forward with God. The judge then, and I don't have her name because my computer is restarting. The judge also then gives her a hug and also hands her a Bible. Yeah. So the judge has found herself in a whole heap of trouble.
Can't be doing that as judge, man.
Yes, because
as a human, good to go. Yes. As judge, no bueno.
There's a lot of people who are like, oh, well, it was just a very human moment and, blah, blah, blah. Well, also she's wearing the robe and she's in the courtroom and you can't be handing out Bibles when you are acting as judge the same way that, what was that guy's name in Alabama who was running for Senate? What's his name?
Roy Moore,
right? He ran
Tammy Kemp. Judge Tammy Kemp.
So Roy Moore ran into that deal because he was hanging up posters of the 10 Commandments in his courtroom and stuff like that.
Can't be doing that, bro.
Can't do that.
Church and
state. You can't do that, right? So, like I said, there's a lot of different ideas about what's going on with this case. There's the toxicology reports came back negative. She was not, under the influence of any type of drugs. The ballistics pattern inside of Botham Jean's body indicates that he was either getting up or crouched to the ground when he was shot. So the idea that he was coming after her is nullified by the science behind the entry wounds, right? Yeah. She also chose not to use her less than lethal force, her taser, her mace, chose not to do anything like this. Again, she had first aid in her backpack and chose not to use the first aid kits. Is that it? Do you want me to move it farther away?
No, you're good.
The dog
test experiment.
The dog is chewing on a rubber toy. So that's probably what you're hearing.
Right. I'll get in post.
So she wasn't under the influence of any drugs. She says that she only provided limited CPR because she only had one hand because she was on the phone with 911 on the other hand. She had been a police officer for 4 years at the time that this happened, has been subsequently fired, obviously, as the investigation happened. I believe that those are all the pertinent facts.
Yeah, I think
as far as the case. Because there's anything else that comes up, we'll talk
I've
about
heard different things about, her having racist past and all this stuff.
Some text messages that she had that were put into evidence during and I'm not trying to give credit because, and when we talk about more opinion, you'll understand why. But
I can't wait for the opinion portion.
I know that when we started this, I had to go back and scrub a bunch of shit from my social media where I had said nigga a bunch of times and all this stuff because just because I was like, whatever, and so I had to go and change
because you were a cool kid.
So I'm not making an excuse for it because it's still not something that I should have done. And it's not something that she should have done. But I know that without having read the text messages, so I don't know the context. I can't provide context. I don't know, what she said, because if she's dropping hard R's, then that's really hard to get around, but whatever. Hard so R's. I'm not even going to get too deep into that. Right. But there's also 2 women, I believe, who lived in the building who said that they heard her knocking on the door and requesting to be let in. There's, like I said, a lot of discrepancy about her testimony and what other people are claiming happened, as far as especially the lawyer for the Jean family. The breakup of the jury, I believe the majority of the jury was African American, so that wipes out a racial tinge as far as the jury is considered, right? Mm-hmm. Botham Jean was not any type of gang member. He was an upstanding member of society. Like someone said that he was like the perfect victim for this cop to finally be found guilty, right? There's no way to paint this man as anything other than an upstanding member of society, as happens in so many other cases.
Churchgoer and all this stuff, and but for real, not like a politician going to church. Like this is a dude. This is just a good dude, and I am torn between this whole thing. Because if I'm going to lay out my opinion, which I'm going to do right now.
First, they also tried, her defense attorney also tried to use the Castle Doctrine as a defense. And if you don't know what the Castle Doctrine is, that's like
she thought it was her place.
It's like a stand your ground type of deal where if you're in your house and someone comes in, you have the right to shoot them. That's like what that is. So they tried to use the Castle Doctrine as a defense. Like, bitch, it's not your house. Nope. You're not even in your house. You're in his house. You walked into his house. He has more of a right to shoot you than you do to shoot him.
Absolutely.
And he's dead. 26-year-old dead in his apartment. Yep. Anyway, so I think, like I said, I think that's the last bit of pertinent facts. If there's anything else that comes up, I'll think about it and I'll mention it. But I think we can move into a little more like the opinion talk about it now, right? So
the jurors rejected the sudden passion defense, which would have lowered the sentencing range to 2 to 20 years.
Because she was facing 28. She was facing 28 years, I think. And there was a couple of the jury that was like, I just couldn't. She seemed like she was genuinely remorseful. And I just couldn't give her 28 years.
Their range was between 5 to 99 years. Because the major conversation about the actual terms in which she was sentenced was the difference between manslaughter and murder. And she was found guilty of murder, not manslaughter.
So
which
it wasn't
like
accidental. Right. There's no negligent, whatever. It was she, and she admitted in her testimony she intended to kill that man. because she says she thought he was an intruder in her home, but either way, he died with her intent to kill him, right?
Yep. So that's changed it to murder.
And that's what matters, yeah.
And I think that's
as
highly justified. That is highly justified. This was charge, murder.
Yeah. 100%.
This was not manslaughter. She didn't accidentally run over somebody. She murked this dude who she thought was in her apartment, which I have thoughts on. Now, my opinion is that I work a shit ton.
Yeah.
And I have a very stressful job that is very taxing on both body and mind. When I leave work at the end of the day, I am not real good at shaking off the day's nonsense. It follows me home. If I have a bad day at work, I have a bad night. It's something I'm working on. I'm going to see a therapist. It's going to be fine. But I understand what it's like to do this. But I am also an individual who is obsessed with knowing what is around me. It bothers me to no end when somebody's standing in a place they should not be standing, stopping to talk to somebody, and doesn't know that there's somebody coming by and they are in their fucking way. Situational awareness is something I feel everybody needs. We've talked about it in, say, like shooter situations and stuff like this. Me and you both have kind of this good problem that you always want to have an escape route. You always want to know what's going on around you. And I think everybody should have that mentality. And so when I work 13 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I am fucking exhausted at the end of the day, as soon as I hit the road, my head is still on a swivel. I'm watching everybody around me. I'm watching all the dumbass people driving like dumbasses, like all the stuff, but I'm still focused.
And you're not a cop.
And I'm not a cop. So, which is different. You would imagine, right? Because everybody's is different. But I hold...
But what my point in saying that is you would imagine that as a police officer, you would be more in tune to your surroundings.
You would hope.
As is your training.
See, right? I would think when you say that they have a more arduous job than I do, more taxing. And so they deal with,
both,
whatever.
But that wasn't my point. Certainly I would say that is correct, but that's
interesting how I assumed something that you did not mean, which is a problem that I have with a lot of things that I'm working on too. But I do not have any pity towards this woman going home after an extra long shift. I mean, fuck, man. I've worked 20-hour days in the Coast Guard and then had to leave and go home, right? That was not an abnormal thing. But I'm still highly aware of what's always going on around me. And if you are not... Sorry. That's that cold part.
You're good,
still
bro.
Sneaks up. But if you're not capable of being highly aware to your surroundings, you should not be in that fucking job to begin with. You should not be a police officer. And we've talked at great length before about how police officer is a very intense job that I don't think a lot of people are really built to handle. And I think this is a case of this. But I feel what the point I'm trying to get at is I think 10 years is a light sentence. The way I think it all went down is she had a long, hard day at work. She'd probably been pulling OT all week. It's a thing that Americans do because we have a work problem. And
especially police officers. Police officers work a lot of overtime. They do. Seems pretty consistent. Law enforcement in general.
And I'll tell you why. It's because they're highly underfunded and understaffed.
Yeah.
Which is a different conversation. But
not on my watch.
But I don't have
just kidding. I'm not running for office.
I don't have any remorse to her working a hell of a long day and not paying enough attention to realize you're on the wrong fucking floor. I've done this before, like in hotels and shit. And not even if I've been out like binge drinking like I usually would at a hotel. You just get off on the wrong floor and you walk around and everything is identical. It's a giant apartment building. I assume it's relatively similar.
But
so you could easily do that.
Multiple signs.
But you see that shit.
Yeah.
And it drives me insane. You know, I think this was a 100% sheer accident. I don't think there's any malice to this whatsoever. But on the other hand, any normal person
shouldn't have
needs to be better than that. You need to understand where you're at, and she fails at that. And unfortunately, I think that's a bigger problem societally than anything else. But I don't have any remorse towards her. This is a man who should not have died, that was murdered in his home.
26-year-old man.
And I think I don't know, man, because it's hard. 10 years is a long time. Her life's over, right? Her life as she knows is over.
She might only do half that time. She might not even do 10 years.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? If she's good the whole time and she gets a bunch of time taken off for good behavior, she might only do 5, 6, 7 years.
This is so good, by the way.
It is.
Something about that leaf, I think, is adding something floral to it.
For murder. For murdering somebody.
Murder.
You know, she stands to possibly do less than 10 years for murdering somebody.
If she accidentally, which I feel this is 100% accidental, she's an idiot who should not have a gun because she obviously is not capable of owning one and being responsible with it. 10 years, a solid 10 years, not early release, whatever. If she was early release at 10 years, I'm like, okay, I get it. Accident happens. I understand. You can never put a value on a human life. And there is no way that family of
Botham Jean
will ever feel, you could never reimburse them societally or financially or anything, right? But as far as her guilt is concerned, I feel like a 10-year lockup is probably enough to teach her a lesson to pay attention to everything. I don't feel like she is a bad person in society or anything like that. Maybe after 10 years of serving time in a federal prison where things are a hell of a lot worse and is a total nightmare to be in is enough punishment for that so that she can go back out as the prison system is supposed to do, rehabilitate you back into society. Because I think this would probably be a textbook case of a murder, an accidental murder. Somebody goes to jail for a long time, learns their lesson, and is a good, upstanding citizen after that. Yeah. I think there's a high probability of that working out.
So this is where I'm at, right?
But fuck, man, if she needs to do at least 10 years.
So this is where I'm at.
I agree. Accidentally shoot somebody.
I don't think that 10 years is long enough. I think that it's super suspicious that just the circumstances of this, right? I agree that I don't think that...
I went back to the wide mouth Nalgene. That's the problem.
I think if you don't have the ability to communicate with 911 and effectively provide CPR to somebody, you shouldn't be a public servant. You shouldn't be a police officer. If you're not able to have the clarity of mind in a high stress situation in which someone is dying in front of you to effectively communicate what has happened and also do your best to save that person's life, you shouldn't be a police officer. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate, however it happens, that isn't found out before she takes someone's life, that she shouldn't be a cop. You know, that she's able to serve on the force for 4 years before, you know, and whatever happens while she's on the force, who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But she's able to serve.
I think that's a conversation that needs to be had also, and we've talked about that before. Who gets to be a police officer? We need to tighten down that shit hard.
Yeah.
Hard. Because this is what a normal person, what I would have done. Because it's subjective. This is what I would have done in that situation. I open the door to my apartment. There is somebody in my fucking apartment. The very first thing I do, back the fuck out, slam that door, and run the fuck down the hallway calling 911. That's exactly what I would do. I'd stand there maybe in the hallway. If I had a gun on me, I would stand outside the hallway.
If you happen to be a concealed carry member.
There. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to stand there, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for the cops to show up. They're going to be here in like 3-4 minutes. If this dude is in my apartment illegitimately,
this is safe.
He's either going to come out and he's going to make his intentions known and things are going to happen and I'm going to have him at gunpoint and he's going to be on the ground, or this dude is going to be terrified. He's going to go in there, lock the fucking doors and just hide out. Yeah. And probably call the cops himself.
My first instinct certainly
is resolved.
My first instinct certainly is not to shoot a man unless this person is actively aggressive upon my entrance into my home. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If they're actively brandishing a firearm pointed at me, I'm much more likely to shoot you when I come into my home. But if you're sitting on my couch eating ice cream when I walk in, I'm much less likely to shoot you without asking any questions at all. You know?
I'm probably gonna
I can only
if you're somebody, if maybe you're a friend of mine that's broke into my house because I forgot to lock my door and crashing on my pad or whatever. I mean, there's so many other circumstances that I would jump to first other than this person's going to try to kill me.
And we can only, speak. We obviously were not in that position.
No.
But
thank God.
From being, just trying to think about it the best that we can, again, my first instinct, especially as someone who conceal carries a pistol every day, who would have a pistol on him upon entering his home at the end of the day, my first instinct is not to shoot you. Certainly my first instinct is to draw my weapon, but it's not to shoot you immediately without asking any questions about what's going on, No. I don't.
That's stupid.
That seems, and I'm not a cop. I'm not a police officer.
No, you're a responsible gun owner.
It seems strange to me that someone whose job it is to enforce the law and to carry a pistol on a daily basis, her first instinct was to shoot this person instead of try and do something else. When my first instinct is not to, and I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a lady cop. I don't know any of that, right? I can only speak from being who I am. But
oh my God, if this is not a sign that the fucking internet is watching you. I pulled up the notes for our Trump timeline, and my computer's stroking out right now, which is weird for some reason. But there is an ad for the Fuzz Duster by Elysian Brewing, which is Elysian Space Dust and Super Fuzz.
Space Blood,
because it's a better name. And that's what we're fucking sitting here drinking. And we didn't even call it that.
No.
There
you go.
I'm like really skeeved out right now. This is not okay. My computer screen just went black.
Uh-oh.
But it's still recording, so I don't care.
That's all right. I got to go pee. So in between this topic and the next, I'd like to take a little break, or you can start running through a timeline if you want. That's fine, because the timeline's kind of extensive. I don't know. The one I have starts at,
extensive.
Fucking like March 2014. So,
yeah, I got one February 22nd, 2014.
I didn't write down everything on this timeline. I wrote down kind of some important stuff that I felt. And then at a certain point I have,
So I got the Washington Post timeline that you sent me.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. So why don't... Yeah, what else you got on the lady cop killer?
I think that's it. I think that I don't think that 10 years is long enough. I think, and this is... If you've been listening to this show for any length of time...
Which you should,
that I am the last person to immediately assume some type of racial injustice in a situation. That's just not where my mind goes to immediately, right? Any type of systemic racism, any of that. That's the last place, right? But this is weird. This ticks that alarm for me that I'm like, this is backwards, right? And I feel, even with the Castle Doctrine, even with all of this shit, right? If Botham Jean had taken the life of this police officer upon entering his home, I think he would have gotten more than 10 years.
Oh, in that situation.
You know what I'm saying? I think that if the roles reversed, not even reversed, if Botham Jean just has a gun, if he's sitting there cleaning his pistols, one of them's sitting there and he's cleaning the other one, and she comes into his home and he shoots her and she dies, I think he does more than 10 years for killing a cop in Dallas, Texas. That's what I think. Even with Castle Doctrine, even being in Texas, I think Botham Jean does more than 10 years, even being an upstanding, church-going accountant in Dallas, Texas, eating fucking ice cream, cleaning his pistols. I think he does more than 10 years if he kills that woman in his home.
I refuse to believe that, because if I do believe that, I'm dipping into nihilism. I can't go there, because I don't want to assume that the system is that bad. And I understand it's bad. And I think if it was him in her position, shooting her, I think he's going to get in a hell of a lot more time. But something about that, he's in his apartment and kills a white lady cop because she intruded. I don't think that would go.
And
I don't know.
I'm not saying that it's.
I would hope not.
I'm not saying he would do time just because she's a white lady cop, right? I think that those are factors that play into it. But I think that if this guy shot a cop that came into his house, I think he would do more than 10 years. I think that. I truly. And I'm telling you, as as you know me, you've known me for a long time. You know, when I talk to Makai, anybody who's trying to talk to me about systemic racism, I always use Makai as an example, and I feel terrible about it. But that's like the one person who's been on here that I've talked to in depthly about it. But I've had the conversation with many other people, right? That's the last place that my mind goes, right? And 10 years, I'm not a juror, so I wasn't there for the trial. I don't know, they were talking about that she seemed genuinely remorseful. They didn't feel like they thought 28 years was too much. I don't know. That seems backwards as fuck to me. That seems really weird to me. Yeah. And I think that, I'm telling you, I think that if he shot her, I think he'd do more than 10 years. I'm not saying he wouldn't get the death sentence. I don't think that he'd, do life in prison, but I think that he would he'd do more time.
This was a black judge, by the way.
Yep.
And I don't know, man. I would really hope not, but God, I don't think that you're wrong.
Yeah.
I just don't want to believe you. And thankfully, we don't have to go there this time because that's not how it went down.
Just hopefully she does all 10 years, I just hope that she does all 10 years. And at the end, she does try and do something better with her life. I think that's...
She won't, though.
Super horrible.
As far as time goes, I mean, she'll get off early.
Yeah. I think it's terrible that this happened. And something
you could tell from the judge's reaction and just everyone's reaction with this trial, like who was involved and the brother that held her and basically, really just forgave her in the biblical sense. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there was some things going on in that courtroom that probably shouldn't have been there. Emotions,
super inappropriate.
Yes, yeah. Emotions don't belong there, but it makes you just. There's something.
If you want your faith in humanity restored, watch Botham Jean's brother speak to Amber Guyger into the court, right? Because
the injustice of this one thing, but the humanity shown.
I want to commend. And do you have his name there? My computer's fucked. But I want to commend Botham Jean's brother for having the wherewithal to be able to forgive her and to move on and just be so understanding of the situation.
Just Jean's brother.
I think that's incredible, right? I don't know that I personally am that strong. So I think that that's really amazing.
I don't think I would be.
That he.
Let me just look at that picture, bro. Botham Jean, your brother.
Brant Jean.
Yep. There you go.
And he gave her a hug and just told her that he forgived her, and that he just wanted her to have a good life and to go with God. And that's awesome.
That's a strong.
It's incredible.
Strong human being. Goodbye, Amber Guyger.
But what else was I gonna say? There was something else. There was one last thing. It also bothers me for some reason that he was only 26, right? Not that it's any better that like a 70-year-old gets murdered in their apartment, because I think that's murder is murder,
But by the numbers, he had much more life to live. But
for some reason, because he's 26, I'm like, you fucking ended his life at like a third of what it should have been.
Prime years too.
And he's being an accountant, he's making money, he's balling out, he's working all the time. I am, for some reason, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, and that's part of why I wanted to talk to you about this, because I want to try and figure out why I feel this way, right? I don't know if it's because I'm young. I don't know if it's because I have a kid. I don't know what it is that makes me feel like him being young makes it especially fucked up. And that's part of why I feel like she should get more time. This guy was 26 years old. Mm-hmm. You murdered him in his apartment. His life is done. Whatever difference he was going to make, had the possibility to make, it's over.
Yep.
Done.
I could have been the next Elon Musk.
You know what I'm saying? So,
but there's no way to factor that. There's no way.
There isn't,
But it hurts.
I know that that's an emotional reaction. And so I know.
Why do people get more emotionally torn up by Sandy Hook over,
oh my
Vegas
God.
shooting?
Do you want to know something fucked up?
Please.
So we can end this.
I brought up Sandy Hook and mass shootings, and now I'm going to hear something fucked up. This is going to be icing on the cake.
Horrible. So in our 2 weeks off, right?
Yep.
It's horrible. I got lost deep down a Sandy Hook rabbit hole. right?
Oh God,
deep, right? So
that's
I'm not.
It's been how many? You're not supposed to go down that rabbit hole, man.
So I don't by any means.
There lies darkness.
Right. So I've not like changed my opinion. I don't think that it's a false flag or anything like that. But no. I watched a documentary that was like 3 hours long.
Boy.
That was called "We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook."
Did this documentary occur on Netflix?
No.
Or YouTube?
It was
You know what I'm saying?
It was from like international. I still have the thing on my
but it was on the internet, not a legitimate streaming service?
Yeah, it was on the internet.
Yeah, that can get dark.
So I heard about it from a conspiracy website. It's
So, yeah. Is this it's like the opposite of a spoiler alert? It's like,
bad.
all right, guys, don't listen to any of this.
Yeah, it's done by like International Journalists United or some fucking shit.
Because that sounds legitimate. That's the problem. They're trying to sound too legit.
Yeah. So I watched all of these are different segments, right? And so these are
gosh.
independent media solidarity. So
That sounds like a cult.
so it is 2 hours 46 minutes long, right? Woo. So I watched this on a Sunday while I was at work. And so I'm watching this, right? And it's done by different YouTube bloggers, but all of their faces are blacked out, right? So,
of course.
So it's all anonymous and they're identified by their YouTube handles. I didn't look any of them up before I came here because I'm a fucking idiot, right?
No, but I don't want you going down those rabbit holes,
just
bro.
to see if they were real, I mean.
Good Lord.
So I, watched a bunch of this stuff, and as I'm like going through it, I'm like, well, that's bullshit. I know that because I looked it up. That's bullshit. I know that because I looked it up. That's bullshit because I know that I looked it up. There were some things that I didn't even understand why they were mentioning at all. I'm like, this bears no relevance to any argument at all. That you're just like, this is fucking suspicious as fuck. And it's like
it's
but
like
of
when you're
what?
watching like a 9/11 documentary and somebody's like, and by the way, the moon landing was real, but we're not talking about that right now.
So the most I can say is that the documentary was interesting to watch, right?
Okay.
This movie, I don't even want to call it a documentary. This movie was interesting to watch, right? Because if you have done some or even extensive or even some research on Sandy Hook and the conspiracies behind it, it's pretty easy to like debunk, you know? And
like
there's
the old government actors.
And there's like people, they're like, these websites were set up, like the day before and all this stuff. And like, I know just from us hosting a podcast that servers register at weird fucking times, that we're getting listens from 2 days ago that are registering now, that just because an IP address says a certain thing does not dictate the day that it is there, that it was posted. So all this shit about
VPN.
Yeah, all that shit is just, that's dumb, right? Yeah. And then there's people like, oh, he was supposed to do it with like this AR, but then they found like the AR in his car, right? So I heard back and forth, people, oh, that's the shotgun, it's an AR. It's a shotgun, it's an AR. So I've just finally looked at the video, right? So you look at the video of the cops pulling the gun out of the back of his car, and it's pretty visibly a shotgun, right? And they don't rack it like this, right? Not like pump action. It almost looks like there's like a little tab on like the chamber cover that you can pull back to eject the cartridge.
Yeah,
and they turn it over.
Shotgun.
Yeah, so they turn it over and just pull this, and the shell that falls out of it lobs out. It's not a brass casing. It's a green or a gray shell that like falls out into the trunk.
Like a shotgun shell.
Yes.
Okay.
It is, if you have even the slightest knowledge about guns,
don't make me break out my ammo.
You would know that it's not a 2.2, it's not a 2.23, it's not a 5.56, it's not
a rifle caliber. Mm-hmm. It is a shotgun shell.
And this is the gun that he supposedly used.
That people are saying it's impossible that he did it with AR because it was found in his trunk. But the gun that's in his trunk is a shotgun. It's not an AR-15 or whatever. It's not the Bushmaster that he supposedly did the shooting with. Did the shooting with. It's a shotgun. But there's all these people
that are saying, oh, it's an AR. This is the gun that he supposedly did the shooting with, and he killed himself in the school. How could he kill himself in the school with the AR if it's in his trunk? Mm-hmm. But it's not in his trunk because it's a fucking shotgun. And like, so you can tell just when they unload it, the way that the casing falls out, it's not
an AR.
It's not a brass casing. It's not any type of rifle round. It's a shotgun shell. You can tell even the most basic of knowledge. It's a shotgun shell.
That's funny.
Yeah. So there's all, it's crazy. People are talking about kids being fake and, ties with Democratic parties. And this person, had a job here and this person was an activist in this country. And it's wild, dude. And there's like one thing where they're talking about people's houses being on Zillow for $1. Like their mortgage was $1. And in one of these many conspiracy podcasts I listened to, apparently a shitload of people in the town of Newtown, because of something that happened with the bank and their mortgages, it looked like it was $1, but if you go to the bank, you can look in the files and see
like
that their mortgage is, it's just somehow the way that it registered, it was for $1, but they didn't pay $1 for their home. They paid several $100,000 for it.
I got to contact Zillow, by the way.
So there's people saying, that, oh, well, these people came here and lied about their kids dying and then they got a house for $1. It's like,
No, motherfucker.
Lots of shit like that.
You
They're
dumbass.
just like, come on, dog.
Especially in my realm of business, I can tell you right now, no.
Yeah.
1,000 times no.
Yeah. It was at the very least, at the most, interesting to watch. But there is no validity to the arguments presented here.
It's like I listened to Alex Jones on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
I know when he's talking about interdimensional vampire pedophiles.
Yeah.
This is just purely entertainment for me, man. This is just... And that's what conspiracy theories should be. They should be 100% entertainment.
The big breaker for me is like there wasn't any federal gun legislation passed in the wake of Sandy Hook. Like they tried to get like universal background checks and shit like that through and were unable to get that passed. So this false flag in order to take people's guns resulted in zero federal legislation that actually effectively got passed.
Which is probably more an argument towards the idea that it is a conspiracy because the government fails at everything they try to do. So,
and I'm just like, if someone believes that Sandy Hook is a conspiracy, they probably think 9/11 is a conspiracy, right? But at least in 9/11, you got the Patriot Act afterwards. You got all these wars in the Middle East. Like there was something that you can at least be like, look at fucking what came of this, But like nothing. People talk about it now that they're like, nothing got done after Sandy Hook. It's like, so what? Like, so what conspiracy to like what? Come on now, dog.
I just can't with those people, man.
It's a weird deal.
Can't.
Tell you, you're lost.
You gotta
down
go
the rabbit hole. It was horrible.
So far and just get in there. I don't get it whatsoever. So I'm glad that you got to watch that.
It was bad. Yeah. And I feel comfortable knowing that I wasn't convinced that Sandy Hook is a conspiracy.
Thank God.
That it was a false flag. But
I'd be highly worried if you started to buy into that. I'm not going to lie. With your background, I'd be highly worried about just the state of the world altogether at that point. The day Don believes in conspiracy theories is the day that's the day I become an expat. I'm moving to Ecuador, bro. I am the fuck out of this bitch.
Yeah.
So when you go pee, can you grab me a beer chacho?
Yes.
Because we're going to talk about Trump next. And that's what we're going to do. And so I'm just going to talk generally about... What'd you say?
Random beer?
Yeah, rando beer is fine. I'm good with... There's so much good stuff in there. Scavenger hunt beer is good. Oh. Can you pop top for me? Thank you. So we're just going to try... I'm going to touch on a couple things while you go pee. Just a background or whatever. So this starts... long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Trademark George Lucas. So particularly what we're going to talk about here is the idea of the impeachment inquiry starting into Donald Trump. The main catalyst to this particular actual advantageous Nancy Pelosi getting up on stage and actually saying that they're going to start the official impeachment inquiry, which I think is kind of a loaded term at this point, because if the Democrats haven't been inquiring to impeach Trump since the day he got in office, I don't know what technically would be at this point. The only difference here is we actually have less investigative power than we did during, say, things like, I don't know if you remember the Mueller report. We talked about that for over a year here right on this podcast. So if you want any info on filling yourself in there, make sure to check those out. But the major catalyst behind this whole thing was a phone call that started. I want to say it was the phone call. I might be. The problem is that there's so many different times that particular Democrats, and actually, let's rewind a little bit from here, because I want to say we're going to be using the terms Democrats and Republicans for a while we talk about this, because in the political sense, there is only two parties. There is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party that have any sway. We have a two-party system. That's just the way it is. Whatever. It's a whole other conversation for libertarians and Green Party and all this good stuff. But the real problem, I think, is going to come from a lot of the nomenclature we're going to use during this conversation, and that is the idea of Democrats and Republicans, because there has been, from the day he was inaugurated, from the day he actually got elected, there's been a seemingly concerted effort on the part of the Democratic Party to find any and every excuse, I should say, to throw Trump out of office. And it's taken many forms. And that is it's taken many forms since we started, whether it was Russian interference, Putin, the Steele dossier, the PP tape, which we alluded to. I highly suggest you I recommend you go check out the pre-show, because we talk about this hilarious article from Slate about the Trump P tape getting released. Got Donovan all worked up right before the podcast. So I just wanted, before we really dive into it, to just prompt the fact that we're going to use the blanket terms, the umbrella terms, if you will, of Democrats and Republicans throughout this conversation. But that does not mean all Democrats, it does not mean all Republicans. It's the overall party voice.
How considerate of you.
Being put forward. I think it's a small, simple idea that most people miss.
So have we started the timeline?
Not even close.
Okay.
I got off on a tangent.
So the timeline is rather long, right? But we want to, in spirit of this show, provide you with the best context that we possibly can.
And we're going to mispronounce a lot of Ukrainian Eastern European names, like Viktor Yanukovych.
Yep.
Who is the former president of Ukraine.
There you go. So, Jesus, the first thing that I have here.
Oh God.
The first thing that I have here is in March of 2014 is that's Hunter Biden getting his job at Burisma Holdings.
Yes.
Right? That's the first thing that I have here. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, procured employment at a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma Holdings in March of 2014, right? Yep. In May of 2014, Petro Poroshenko is the president of the Ukraine.
Indeed.
Right? In February of 2014, Viktor Shokin becomes prosecutor general, right? Which is like the attorney general. It's like, the equivalent.
February 10th, 2015.
There you go.
May 25th, 2014, Petro Poroshenko was elected president.
Yep. And then February 2015, Viktor Shokin, prosecutor general. Next thing I have here, December 15th, Biden tells the Ukraine that they should fire Shokin for not doing his job, right? There's a lot of concern regarding Viktor Shokin that he's not investigating corruption the way that he should, that he himself is involved in corruption, that there's just a lot of shadiness going on in the Ukrainian government, as goes on in many governments around the world.
I think it's very important to note, prior to any of this happening, March 2014 Russia invades Crimea, and which is a peninsula belonging to the Ukraine.
Yep.
And then annexes it and says, "This is ours, bitches." And it speaks to part of the thing. Before we get into this, I think is important to say, Ukraine is a very interesting place because they have more or less been dealing with the empirical, if you will, nature of the Russian Federation, and they have a tendency to essentially take over governments.
Yeah.
To incorporate them into the Russian Federation in some format. Some people looking to Putin as trying to rebuild the Soviet Union. And this is a part of the world that is ripe with corruption and has been for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And so it's important to note that this took place after the annexation of Russia, or by Russia of Crimea, which used to belong to Ukraine. I just want to add that before we get going.
Absolutely.
I think that speaks to context.
No, absolutely. So, like I said, December 2015, Joe Biden's in the Ukraine, and he tells the Ukrainian government that they need to fire Shokin because he's not doing his job, or else they're going to lose these guaranteed loans they have to help fight the Russians in Crimea, right? And
he was not alone in this. This was backed by the international community.
Correct. Many world leaders are agreeing that Shokin needs to go, that he needs to not be in this position anymore. So they're threatening to withdraw about $1 billion in guaranteed loans that they stand to be able to use for their military efforts against Russia. February 11th and 19th of 2016, Biden again tells the Ukrainian government that they need to get rid of Viktor Shokin. In March 2016, Viktor Shokin is finally ousted by the Ukrainian parliament, so he's no longer in that position. In May of 2016, Yuri Lutsenko becomes the new prosecutor general. If I'm skipping anything that you think needs to be mentioned, just, let me know.
Nope.
I read through this and
say that when Biden went over there, he was speaking directly to Poroshenko.
Yeah, to the president of the Ukraine, correctly. Yep. Yeah, no, that's right. I should probably specify that as opposed to just the Ukrainian government. He is speaking to Poroshenko, telling them.
And it was important at the time. The idea was that we were, as a nation, trying to get Ukraine in line enough to make sure that the U.S. and the international community could back them as an ally and support them against Russia.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole purpose behind this was for. It wasn't just randomly Biden's going over there.
Right.
Because his son's over there. It had nothing to do with that.
No, absolutely. That's what we're talking about, that this opinion is in line with many other world leaders. It's in line with the general foreign relations strategy with the general foreign relations strategy of the United States and the Obama administration at the time. There is nothing untold or strange about Joe Biden using this rhetoric and expecting these things, and also using that $1 billion as almost a little bit of blackmail to ensure that this happens, to make sure that's something that's in the best interest of the world community, right?
Geopolitics. It's good for geopolitics.
Yeah, for this to happen, right?
We want more allies in the former Soviet Union than adversaries.
Yeah. And so it's important also to know, just in the interest of full disclosure, that at this time, while all this is going on, Viktor Shokin is investigating Burisma Holdings while Hunter Biden is working there.
So he's already there.
So there are people who are arguing that Joe Biden is doing what Donald Trump is now being accused of doing, and we'll get into that later. But by holding this money over the head of the Ukrainians to try and save his son from being investigated, many people arguing that.
We're going to touch on that once we power through the timeline.
As of now, there does not seem to be any indication that is the case, right? Mm-hmm. As we said, if nothing else, because it is directly in line with the foreign relations policy of everyone. That's what everyone wanted at the time. It was in the best interest of everyone in the world. So after Yuri Lutsenko is the new prosecutor general in May of 2016, in January of 2017, the investigations into Burisma Holdings are ended, minus one oil sale of like an oil derrick or an oil processing plant or some shit like that. Yeah. It is after this, in June of 2017, that Rudy Giuliani goes and meets with Poroshenko and Lutsenko, right? The president and the prosecutor general in the Ukraine. And it is assumed, and I believe proven at this time, that he began to have discussions with them about trying to investigate these really backwards ideas that him and the president have on Ukrainian involvement in the 2016 election and Hillary Clinton and hiding servers and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and just corruption, that they're there trying to,
it may not get Sandy Hook deep, but it gets deep.
Yes. And so after that, in May of 2018, the Ukrainian officials stop assisting the Mueller investigation. After, obviously, the Mueller investigation starts happening. There's all this stuff that's going on in America in 2017, 2018. And during this time, the Ukrainian officials were working with the Mueller investigation to try, get them whatever information they needed regarding whatever. And it's at this time that the Ukrainian officials stop assisting with the Mueller investigation in an attempt to preserve relationships with President Trump, right?
Which... it's reported that way.
Yes, which may or may not be the case. Certainly that it's, and it is important that this timeline that we base this off of is comprehensive, but it is also from the Washington Post, right?
Yeah.
So it's reported with a certain tinge, but it is an extremely comprehensive timeline, and that's why we chose to use this one. And so again, it is assumed by many that they're doing this in an attempt to preserve relationships with President Trump, because again, it's this same argument that's saying that Rudy Giuliani is there in the Ukraine visiting and working with the president and the inspector general or the prosecutor general to try and get these investigations going on.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say, in geopolitical terms, that is not out of the ordinary. It makes sense. You want to be on the side of America especially a small country under siege, essentially, from a foreign adversary
who needs military assistance. If you need military assistance, America's the place to go.
That's right. We got it all, baby. We got all the guns and the missiles and the bombs and the jets and the ships and everything.
Yeah. In March of 2018, there's an election that's going on in the Ukrainian government to see for the new president. There's a new presidential election that's going on. At this time, Lutsenko, the current prosecutor general, knows that if Poroshenko does not win the election, then he's going to lose his job, right? He will not hold the position anymore. And it's at this time Lutsenko begins to make allegations about Joe Biden, and, corruption in the Ukrainian government and withholding the money and 2016 election and involvement. This is where some of the story starts to come out from there about Ukrainian involvement in the 2016 election, servers, weird shit, right?
So up until this point, we were talking about Russia.
Right. And it's at this point that story starts to come out, and it's important to know that these are the same beliefs that President Trump and Rudy Giuliani hold, that Hillary Clinton had her email server in the Ukraine, and all these DNC emails went there, and all her emails went there, and, all this shit that there is absolutely no evidence, to support any of this.
Just
right?
couldn't let it go.
It is all totally baseless. They're not based in fact at all. It's crazy.
James Rison from The Intercept actually wrote about this back in he started the story back in 2015 when Biden first started to go over there and Hunter got on the board and all the shit. Because he was trying to talk about...
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, the same liver spots and everything. I'm sorry, that was terrible.
He looks just like him.
But what I'm saying here is, this guy wrote this piece looking essentially toward the nepotism aspect.
Yeah. Because
Hunter Biden's kind of the black sheep of the family, and he always needs his name to get something because he's a fuck up.
Yeah.
He got, drummed out of the Navy for testing positive for coke and all this stuff. He's, there's always one in every political family.
Yeah.
And I think, so he wrote this piece back in 2015 looking at this and doing all the investigation. And at this point, everything adds up to there's no conspiracy here. There was nothing. Biden was doing this on the behest of the president of the United States because he was the VP, and the international community wanted to protect Ukraine, and they wanted Ukraine on their side.
Right.
So there was a push by the international community. The U.S. obviously takes the lead because we were still the leader of the free world back then.
Yeah.
And so we did. And yes, there was a conflict of interest. And yes, it was problematic. But I think the worst we're looking at here is nepotism, not corruption.
Yeah.
But anyways, we'll get to that later.
So, in April of 2016, Zelensky, what's this guy's name? What's his first name? Do you know?
President Zelensky?
Yeah.
I don't know if I know his first name. I just call him President Z.
There you go. So Zelensky, right? He wins the presidential election, and he's just now waiting to be inaugurated, confirmed as the president. And it's after that in mid-April that Hunter Biden's term as a board member ends and he leaves Burisma Holdings. So he's no longer employed at Burisma Holdings, right?
His $50,000 a month free ride has ended.
Right? In April, the Mueller report releases, and there's, all kinds of shit that comes out after that.
Yep.
In April 21st, Zelensky is elected president. In April 23rd, Giuliani begins to tweet about the Ukrainian investigation in 2016. And this is his tweet from April 23rd of 2019. Hillary is correct. The report is the end of the beginning for the second time. No collusion. Now Ukraine is investigating Hillary campaign and DNC conspiracy with foreign operatives, including Ukrainian and others to affect 2016 election. And there's no Comey to fix the result.
Rudy, shut your mouth.
On April 25th, in an interview with Fox's Sean Hannity, Trump addresses the suggestion that Ukraine interfered in the 2016, which, okay, so
and
I think
Hannity's
it's
like,
weird
yeah,
to begin
yeah.
with that the president is on Fox News. Like that did Barack Obama ever call into any?
No, bro.
That's really weird.
Come on. But
that's really weird,
In the Jod Podhorns terms, this is normal. This is Trump's normal.
Dude, fuck him, right? No, Rothman's gone for 2 weeks. I'm not even going to listen to the commentary. I'm not even going to listen to it.
It didn't come out today or yesterday. I mean, I was highly upset.
Yeah.
They were a day late on the first upload, and now no Thursday podcast, no commentary for Colin.
So Trump says, while he's on Sean Hannity, he says, I would imagine that Barr would want to see this. People have been saying the concept of Ukraine, they've been talking about it actually for a long time.
No.
Rudy Giuliani's been talking about it for a long time, and that's it, right? In May, 2 associates of Giuliani's traveled to the Ukraine to meet with Ukrainian officials, according to the report cited by the whistleblower, right? And that's why we're here today. That's why we're talking about this is a whistleblower report that we're going to talk about just a little bit later in this timeline that kind of blows the lid off of all this stuff and begins all this investigation, right? Mm-hmm. And sheds more light on this Hunter Biden, Joe Biden stuff. And sheds more light, but causes people to maybe broaden the lens and see that it's involved in more things.
Did we know about the phone call first or the whistleblower complaint first?
It's the phone call that we found out about first, but it's just that's how it's stated in here.
I couldn't remember earlier. I tried to prompt that earlier. I was like, I don't even remember which one came first, to be honest.
Yeah. No, you're good. So let's see here.
Yeah, see, then as it gets closer, the timelines get bigger and bigger in their description.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I'm trying to fucking...
May, blah, blah, blah. So, between... May, so this guy, now Giuliani, has been going to the Ukraine for a minute.
Yeah, he's been traveling back and forth. He's been meeting with different officials, trying to get the investigations into Hunter and Joe Biden restarted, and also trying to get an investigation into Hillary Clinton started.
Yeah. A tweet from May 10th. Giuliani tweets about the Ukrainian investigation.
Yep.
Says, explain to me why Biden hasn't... Oh, I just accidentally clicked that. My bad. I just went away. Explain to me why Biden shouldn't be investigated if his son got millions from a Russian-loving, crooked Ukrainian oligarch while he was VP and point man for the Ukraine. Ukrainians are investigating and your fellow Dems are interfering. Election is 17 months away. Let's answer it now.
On the 11th, Giuliani cancels his trip that he had scheduled to the Ukraine amid a backlash over the propriety of personal aid to the president seeking damaging information about a political opponent from a foreign government. Because it's at this time that the argument can really no longer be made that Giuliani is just over there making sure everything's on the up and up and whatever. At this point, he is actively researching opposition research and trying to incite a foreign government to look for opposition research into a political opponent from his boss, right? Yep. He's a personal lawyer from the president, so it's not technically illegal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no technical illegality.
It is technically fine.
It's just dirty.
But it's super dirty. Super fucking dirty. Super shady. And lying about the guise of why he's going over there. Right? And so it's at the same time incredibly deceptive. Right?
Well, lying or not, he believes... I truly think Rudy thinks this is real.
Yeah.
He's bought in hook, line, and sinker. That is not a shotgun he's pulling out of the car. It's an AR at this point.
Yeah. That's really funny.
Topical comedy, bro.
Let's see here. It says mid-May, the whistleblower starts hearing concerns about Giuliani's circumvention of the government's official process as regards to Ukraine. Jesus Christ. May 26th or May 16th, Lutsenko says there is no evidence of any wrongdoing by the Bidens, right? So at this point, not only does it look like it's on the up and up in America, but the foreign government that is supposedly looking into the Bidens now says there is no wrongdoing by the Bidens. Everything looks like it's fine, right?
Textbook nepotism.
In May 19th, an interview with Fox News, Trump explicitly references Biden's efforts in the Ukraine. Quote, Biden, he calls them and says, don't you dare persecute if you don't fire this prosecutor. The prosecutor was after his son, Trump says. And then he said, if you fire the prosecutor, you'll be okay. And if you don't fire the prosecutor, we're not giving you $2 billion in loan guarantees or whatever he was supposed to give. Can you imagine if I did that?
$1 billion, by the way.
Also, $1 billion. Again, the Prism probe was dormant at the time, according to the U.S. and Ukrainian officials, and there was no evidence that focused on the actions of the Bidens at all. May 20th, Zelensky is inaugurated as president. May 23rd, the administration notifies Congress that it intends to release aid money to the Ukraine. Right? This is the first step of really the big thing that's currently, under discussion is this money that's being withheld from the Ukraine. Congressionally,
so when or why congressionally approved non-lethal aid to Ukraine was stopped allegedly by a member of the executive branch. Overruled Congress, aka in this context, the President of the United States. But for what reason, we do not know. And I don't think we will ever know.
On June 20th, in an interview with Fox News, Trump links Ukraine and the effort to hack the Democratic National Committee during the 2016 election, a link that the whistleblower and recent reporting suggests doesn't exist. No one can prove that there was any type of connection between any of this shit because all of our intelligence agencies have said that it was the Russians. June 21st, this is a tweet by Rudy Giuliani. New president of Ukraine still silent on investigation of Ukrainian interference in 2016 election and alleged Biden bribery of President Poroshenko. Time for leadership and investigate both if you want to purge how Ukraine was abused by Hillary and Obama people. Jesus.
If you're trying to sound nonpartisan, Rudy, that's not the way you do it.
Yep. It's around this time on July 12th that it begins to be reported that Trump and the current, at the time, Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, are starting to butt heads, right? We talked earlier about Dan Coats, and let me write that down so I can talk about Dan Coats or link back to Dan Coats.
Good old Dan Coats.
Yep, Dan Coats. Let's see here. On July 18th, Trump's decision to withhold nearly $400 million in aid to Ukraine is communicated to the state and defense departments. Members of Congress are told that the hold is part of an interagency delay.
Question mark.
Right?
What does that mean?
Yep. July 19th, Ambassador Volker texts Giuliani to connect him to Zelensky aide named Andrei Yermak. July 22nd, Shokin tells the Post that he was removed over the Biden issue. And this is his quote, I will answer that the activities of Burisma, the involvement of his son, Hunter Biden, and the Prosecutor General's office, investigators are on this tail, are the only, I emphasize, the only motives for organizing my resignation. Other Ukrainian officials have cast doubt on this and said the investigation had long been dormant when Shokin was removed. So by all accounts, other than Viktor Shokin, they weren't even doing an investigation at the time into the Bidens. So it would be really weird if that's why he got fired, right?
Yeah.
On July 23rd, the OMB reiterates the aid to Ukraine is suspended. What does the OMB stand for? Do you know?
Google.
There you go. And let's see, July 25th.
Office of Management and Budget.
There you go.
So in other words, the people that dole
handle the money.
cash.
Yep. On July 25th, Trump and Zelensky speak on the phone. This is this is the big thing, right?
This
is the thing that came out in the whistleblower report, right? Or that, I mean, it was talked about in the whistleblower report, and then the report actually came out, right? So on July 25th, Trump and Zelensky speak on the phone, and this is the president of the Ukraine, mind you, as we later find out from a rough transcript. This is really important. It is not a word-for-word transcript. It is a dictation by people who were listening at the time and actively taking notes, right?
Yeah, it's like a weird, they call it an annotative transcript.
But there's a lot of people calling it a word-for-word transcript, including the president. But that is not what it is. By admittance of people in his administration, it is not a word-for-word transcript of the call.
Pompeo
right?
was on the phone, and he wasn't even paying attention to what was going on.
Trump repeatedly notes how good the United States is to Ukraine and then proceeds to ask Zelensky to open 2 investigations, one involving CrowdStrike. So this is how it's worded here, right? And if you read the
annotated transcript.
There you go. If you read that, right, the president does in fact talk about how much stuff we do for the Ukraine. And then the president of Ukraine is like, yeah, and we're talking about buying some more Javelin missiles. And President
wink,
Trump,
nod.
President Trump says, I want you to do me a favor, though. That is the quote of what he says. I want you to do me a favor, though, or do us a favor, though, right? That's what he says. The though is there on the end. There's a bunch of people who are like, oh, he doesn't say that. You added that. That what they released, what the White House released, that's what it says. I want you to do us a favor, though. And then asks the president to open an investigation into Joe Biden, into Hunter Biden, right?
I thought it was just into corruption. We need to look at corruption.
Do you have the let's
the rough transcript?
Yep, my thing's fucked up.
Problem is nobody wants to fucking release it.
My computer.
So we absolutely right. Blah blah blah. It's a very good idea. Well, yes. To tell you the truth, we're looking hard because we want to drain the swamp here in our country. So using Trump's language, I'm trying to find the exact portion of this thing. Zelensky. Congratulations on the big victory. There's a good idea. Okay, I was very happy about
Let's see,
that.
'cause we want the quotes. We want to make sure that it's...
Well, just spitball for a second.
Yep.
The United States has been very, very good to Ukraine. I would say that it's reciprocal necessarily because there are happening that they are not good, but the United States has been very, very good to Ukraine. It turns out, blah, 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 European Union... They got all the important shit highlighted.
Yeah.
All right. I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I feel like I should have a good Trump voice here.
Don't do it.
I guess you have one of your wealthy people. The server, they say Ukraine has it. There are a lot of things that went on, the whole situation. I think you're surrounding yourself with some of the same people. I would like to have an attorney general call you and your people, and I would like you to get to the bottom of it. As you saw yesterday, the whole nonsense ended with a very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller and incompetent performance. Wow. I mean, maybe his testimony, but... Yeah, that was it.
So he doesn't, in this phone call, so excuse me, I did get confused because in this phone call, at least by this transcript, he doesn't note the Bidens in specific. But since then, he has noted them in specific. Like he's been they should look into the Bidens. Yeah.
The phone call transcript itself doesn't specifically say it, but he has since then made it very, very clear that that's what he was talking about. But, I think of impeachment, Senate court, provable evidence.
Right.
No, they're there.
Right. An internet security, CrowdStrike is an internet security company that probed the Democratic National Committee hack in 2016 and the other involving the Bidens, right? Here it is.
And I think it's important to note that on a lot of media outlets reporting on this story, they do not verbatim read that like we just did.
Well, so
because they just assume, they just say that he asked him to investigate the Bidens.
Well, you should look further down, right? Because this says he later adds, quote, the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution. And a lot of people want to find out about whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me.
So he does, just later. Not that particular portion.
So the big question for a lot of people here, right, is the legality, is because after this happens, after this comes out, right, after the phone call is released or is reported, and then there's a whistleblower report that comes out a couple days later that just kind of expands on this and says that this whistleblower didn't hear this conversation, but many other people dictated to him, and it's confirmed, and he feels very confident in it. And
I learned from multiple U.S. officials that senior White House officials had intervened to, quote, lock down all records of the phone call, especially the official word-for-word transcript from the call that was preceded, as is customary by the White House Situation Room.
Right. So after the phone call happens, as you said, it's locked down in what they call like a passcode security.
It's a skiff, baby.
And
this is like the most top secret of top secret.
We find out later that apparently that's not uncommon for them to do with Trump's phone calls with
foreign leaders,
but it's not as suspicious as it seemed originally, but is still, I think, sus, right?
Super sus, bro.
So.
Especially with the way that motherfucker talks.
Yes. So
come on now.
So the whistleblower report comes out.
Every time I swear word now, I'm like, I hear my grandma going, "What are you doing?"
And it is the day after the whistleblower report that Nancy Pelosi and more moderate Democrats say that they are in favor of an impeachment inquiry, and it is formally announced that an impeachment inquiry will start, and it is going to start cracking. Right?
Cracking.
So let's see, what day did the whistleblower report come out, right? Because July 28th, Coates resigns. Let's see here. There's like more meetings with Zelensky on August 2nd. Giuliani travels to Madrid where he meets with Zelensky advisors named Audrey Yermak. This meeting was a direct follow-up to the July 25th call, according to the whistleblower's sources. Giuliani had also been reaching out to other Zelensky advisors. Let's see here. Joseph Maguire takes Coates' job on August 8th.
August 15th, Coates and Gordon officially leave their positions.
Yep.
It really starts to snowball after
In late August, lawmakers raised concern about Ukraine aid being withheld, citing its importance to defend the former Soviet Republic from Russia, especially because they're saying that it was just interdepartmental delay. Let's see here. On September 2nd, on the 1st, Vice President Pence meets with Zelensky for a World War II memorial. And on the 2nd, Pence says he didn't discuss Biden with Zelensky, but he did suggest that aid was contingent on rooting out corruption. Quote, as President Trump had me make clear, we have great concerns about issues of corruption, Pence said. The president wants to be assured that those resources are truly making their way to be the kind of investments that will contribute to security and stability in the Ukraine. So that certainly could be interpreted as suggesting the aid was contingent on rooting out corruption, but that is not by that language definitive that that's what he was doing. Again, that's as this is written here.
And especially on the phone call, he's already brought up Biden.
Right.
So now when you say corruption, you're talking about Biden.
Yes. Let's see here. On the 5th, the Post editorial board writes that it had been reliably told that Trump was attempting to force Mr. Zelensky to intervene in the 2020 U.S. presidential election by launching an investigation of the leading Democratic candidate, Joe Biden.
The Post as in the WA Post.
Yes. September 9th, Atkinson notifies the House and Senate Intelligence Committees that a whistleblower has filed a complaint, but he does not reveal its contents or substance. September 10th, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff writes to Maguire demanding Congress receive the complaint. Trump announces on Twitter that the National Security Advisor John Bolton resigned. September 11th, the Trump administration releases the Ukrainian aid that had been withholding. The 13th, Schiff subpoenas Maguire to compel him to disclose a whistleblower complaint, and so it's released eventually. On the 17th, Maguire says he won't testify or hand over the whistleblower complaint, which is not true. When he was testifying, he said that he needed more time, not that he wouldn't do it. But he also said there's confusion about whether Maguire, and I want to try and wrap this up because we're getting on this for fucking a long time and I gotta get home, but,
word.
But there's confusion about whether or not McGuire did the right processes of going to the White House first to see if there was any type of executive privilege that was going on there. And, the lawmakers feel like they should have seen it first before the White House. And
I think it's important to note that McGuire had been he had been
like
acting
6 weeks.
for like 6 weeks at this point.
Yeah.
And then he did ultimately go to the House to testify.
And he made it seem like he was following the policy that is written out by just trying to make sure that there was nothing, that should be withheld that's being released.
Which I understand, and it's complicated, and it's one of those, there's no precedent for that.
Yeah.
It's literally unprecedented, where a whistleblower complaint concerns the president, and you also have to check with him for executive privilege.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think about would be Eric Holder and Fast and Furious.
Yeah. So President Trump releases the transcript, the supposed transcript of the call with Zelensky, and it's on the 24th that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi finally announces her support for the formal impeachment inquiry. The next day, the rough transcript is released. The 26th, McGuire testified, and the 27th, more than 300 former U.S. national security and foreign policy officials signed a statement supporting House Democrats' impeachment inquiry. So,
Volker, at this point, resigns.
Yeah.
He's like, I am out of here.
Yeah.
This is no bueno. And then he later testifies on the Hill in front of Congress, which has happened, what was that, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the really hard part about really talking about this right now is there is new info that's coming out just about every hour at this point. And it's going to continue to go for a long time. And so I think what's best for us to do at this point is just kind of talk about where we stand with what we know so far.
Right. So one of the big questions that there is, or at least arguments over the impeachment inquiry from the more conservative side, is that in order for impeachment to even be a discussion, there needs to be some type of explained, what they call quid pro quo, like a,
I do this,
exactly,
you do that,
right? And
we help each other out.
Conservatives or Republicans are saying because the president did not say, I'm not going to give you money unless you do this, there's not enough to say that there's a quid pro quo, right? Mm-hmm. The Democrats are obviously arguing that there is enough insinuations there to argue that there was one. And the conservatives are also saying, oh, well, Joe Biden did this and blah, 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 which, as we have shown, there does not seem to be any evidence that there was any wrongdoing on the side of the Bidens. There is no doubt, even if you ask Republicans, that the conversation the president had with Zelensky was highly improper. Highly improper. Super suspect. Definitely shouldn't be having conversations like that. In my personal opinion, Ryan, that's reason enough for me to think you shouldn't be president. I don't know if that's enough for you to get impeached, because that's a big process, but that's enough for me personally to think you should not be the president. That is highly unethical, highly inappropriate. I'm not okay at all with conversations like this being had by our president with other foreign leaders.
Nope.
Because at the end of the day, regardless of what anyone thinks, the president is inciting a foreign leader to involve himself in our federal elections. That's it. There's no question about it. It doesn't matter. Oh, I interpret it this way. It doesn't matter. That's the only way to truthfully, objectively read that is the president, with directly asked a foreign country and a foreign leader and a foreign prosecutor to involve himself in our nearest federal election.
Yeah.
That is fucked up.
There's no way to get around it, because even though we're talking about corruption, which is the blanket term they're using here, which it's one of those, it depends on what your definition of is. They talk about corruption and rooting out corruption. But when they talk about corruption at this point, what they really mean is the corrupt Biden family, blah, blah, blah. And so by having them focus that direction, they are indirectly, or actually rather directly, having a foreign power investigate a individual who is now running for president of the United States.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a roundabout way to attack a direct political opponent.
Yeah.
And you just can't get around it. And then we've had over, the last day or two, I think it was yesterday that Trump in a press conference actually on television said, hey, it was one of those like, hey, Russia, you should look into these emails things. It was, hey, China, you should look into these Biden things.
Yeah.
And at this point, I don't care if there's quid pro quo. This man cannot lead the United States of America. He cannot be the face of the United States of America anymore. He has proven himself incapable of carrying out the will of the people.
Yeah.
In a foreign policy concept. Period. There may not be a quote high crime or misdemeanor to do this,
right.
But because this is a political
it's a political process.
Yeah. That's what I was looking for. I couldn't land on it. Because it's a political process, you don't need to get a guilty verdict in a criminal court.
No.
This is a political process.
Trial.
This guy obviously does not have the best interests of the United States in mind at this point. He needs to be removed from office. You need to impeach on those grounds, and you might be able to get the Republicans on your side at this point.
So, yeah, especially because this is, I think, more than enough, especially for me personally, to warrant an actual genuine impeachment inquiry, right?
Like this is foreign. I mean, I don't want to say treason, but this is the man going against the fundamental ethics and morals of the United States of America.
If you were somehow able to gain access to the transcript of this phone call and the other phone calls, right, that have been locked away.
They're trying to do.
If you're able to do that and you're able to show just a continued pattern of inappropriate discussions with foreign leaders,
like let's look at some of those Putin
then
calls.
The Republicans will have no choice but to get on board, because they're already on board. They're not on board for impeachment, but they're, without saying that they don't agree with what he did, they're saying it's incredibly inappropriate. It's incredibly concerning, right? Especially because this isn't just something that's being ginned up by the Democrats. This is something the president released. This is a document that the White House released under order of the president. This is not a made-up leaked document. This is released by the White House, by his own transcript.
Yep.
Rough transcript, whatever you want to call it, right?
Volker was, I don't know if he was subpoenaed or he was under deposition or whatever, but he recently testified, and he shared these text messages, and it's like a not full text message chain. It's like a group of these text messages that might apply to it, which I don't understand what the deal is here. But in those text messages, man, it don't look good. And
there's evidence.
It's bad.
That could suggest that people in the Trump administration knew that President Trump was withholding aid to try and get the Ukrainian government to begin to investigate the Bidens in the 2016 election.
And by reading those text messages, you get the perception.
Looks horrible.
That these individuals surrounding this whole situation, essentially not necessarily trying to do anything terrible. They're trying to make a good working relationship with Ukraine and the United States of America. They're trying to, these aides are trying to coach the presidents how to talk and what they're going to say and all this stuff. But they're focusing on the fact that the president said there can be no quid pro quo.
Yep. Which
means he knew what he was getting into, and he knew what is impropriety, what he would be able to get away with.
Could and couldn't say.
And this speaks to the sleazy New York real estate guy in him. What can we do that's just barely legal to get by?
And we have heard this, not to, I'm not pumping up Michael Cohen, but we have heard someone, Michael Cohen, in the president's own camp, say that when he talks in a way that he insinuates that what he wants without him saying what he wants.
Yeah, it's called mobster speak.
He knows what he can and can't say. Mm-hmm. He knows what he can get away with, and he knows what will absolutely incriminate him for what he wants, right?
So I heard something on Shapiro today, actually, I think. And I was like, how does Trump go from the world's worst lawyer, Michael Cohen, the minute he gets thrown in jail, he gets the world's second worst lawyer, Mayor Giuliani.
It's weird, right? It's super weird. And at the same time, Giuliani's still out here going on about the Bidens and about Ukraine,
Giuliani's going to end up testifying in front of Congress.
Oh, he's going to have to. Oh, and that's going to be the best thing to watch.
It is, because every time he gets on Fox News or CNN, he does more and more damage. And I can only imagine the damage he's going to cause in Congress.
He's crazy.
He is. So we're going to just watch and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think that's all we have as far as...
now we got to talk fantasy. I'm kicking your ass.
Yes, we're going to talk fantasy, and then we're going to do our picks, and then we're going to get the fuck out of here. I have some notes for sports, but we're just going to do it a different day. So... Yeah, you and I are playing each other in fantasy this week. Let me pull up our matchup here.
And I made a move the other night where I was thinking I needed a new tight end. Yep. And I needed one. I've been looking on the thing, and this guy was not the number one available tight end on the list. I think he was number 3 or 4. But I saw that the Rams were playing the Hawks this week, and I'm like, if there's anybody that's going to fuck on the Hawks, it's going to be the Rams.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling if they're going to do that, they're going to utilize their tight end. He's going to get some good points. So I took a gamble. I picked him up. And boy, howdy, he got me over 20 points that game.
Yes, he did.
On top of that, the Hawks won. So this was a win-win for me, baby.
Yeah.
I got to root for my guy who's beating the Seahawks' ass, and they still come out with a win at the end.
And it was maybe the best... It was definitely the best Thursday night game that I've ever watched. One of the best football games that I've ever watched. It was awesome. So we are playing each other this week. You got a good 20-point projection lead on me, 15-point projection lead. Yeah, Gerald Everett, that tight end.
Projected to get like 4.5 points.
Yeah, 7 receptions for 136. You got 20.5 points out of this guy.
Not too shabby.
And every time he's catching the ball, I'm like, fuck that guy. Like, what the fuck, man? He just kept catching the ball, and I just couldn't believe it. Over 100 fucking yards, dude.
That's what I was hoping he was going to have for a tight end.
Yeah.
Who does that other than Gronk back in his heyday?
Yeah, there's only a couple. Travis Kelce, George Kittle that, can get up there and do that.
Problem is, I don't think it's going to last that long, so I might have to get rid of it.
So we'll see what happens. I have Josh Allen as my QB. I don't know if he's even going to play on Sunday. I'm hoping he's going to play on Sunday. If he doesn't, I'm going to have to try and pick someone up. It's going to be
I got Garoppolo back in action this week, coming off a bye week.
Playing Cleveland.
Always be but he's playing Cleveland, like you said.
Playing Cleveland,
and so I'm
good
like,
defense.
I feel good. I feel good, but I'm still nervous.
Yeah.
But then again, it's Garoppolo, so I'm always nervous.
You have some good matchups this week, but I'm a little concerned. So we'll see. And I've been doing really poorly this year. I'm 1-3 in this big money league. I
think I'm only
you're
2-2,
2-2, but you still have a win lead on me. Yeah, and
it's not something I can set and forget. I got to look at this thing every week.
Active work for sure. So I have Josh Jacobs at Chicago, which sucks really bad. Mark Ingram at Pittsburgh, which kind of sucks. But I have DeAndre Hopkins at Atlanta, so I'm really hoping that he'll just catch 3 fucking touchdowns and score 60 points, and that's what will do the job for me. Darren Waller at Chicago, that fucking sucks. Golden Tate's coming back. I think I have to play him in Minnesota.
Fucking traitor.
It sucks. Yeah, I'm in a bad place as far as
the guy who was rooting against the Hawks this weekend.
So I have Terry McLaurin, but he's playing New England, and I don't, Michael Gallup against Green Bay. It's just, I don't know. It sucks. So,
do you? Because you're in so many leagues.
4.
How do you look at every draft in a completely different angle? Do you try to get different?
Try to get different people. Yeah,
but do you still always front load? Because you're kind of a wide receiver running back guy for like 8 rounds.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You do that pretty solid in every league?
I mix it up a little bit. Like in one of the leagues, I got Zach Ertz as my tight end. So I had to draft him early. Like I'm in like the 3rd round. So sometimes I'll fuck around. I'm like, well, maybe I'll take a quarterback early, but way more apt to take a tight end early than anything else because I know that those will be more worth it at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. It's either they're worth it or they're not. And you get a slow trickle of points.
Yeah.
Or you get a beast.
But definitely I try and focus a lot on running backs, just because they go so quickly and
they do go quick.
Yeah.
Quick. Yeah,
so
they certainly do.
They become much harder to find. So I ended up having some pretty good running backs this year. Like I have Josh Jacobs, Mark Ingram, fucking Kerryon Johnson, and Devin Singletary. So I got some good running backs, especially in a 14-team league, they become increasingly important.
Oh, yeah, man.
Because after a couple weeks, there's just nothing left on the waiver wire to be.
And the injuries have been hard so far this year already.
Yeah.
Been heavy hitting.
Yeah.
It's a tough year, man.
Spot.
Yeah, it's one of those bottom of the barrel years, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So we will do our picks now, and we will do...
What week is this now?
We're going to be in week 5, so we should do our week 6 picks, right? Okay. So that people can hear the week 6 picks on Monday. We can do 5 and 6 real quick if you want. That's up to you.
We'll just do 6.
All right.
Let's do 6.
So week 6, right? Because we're trying to stay a week ahead. We fucked around and didn't do our picks during the weeks off, but we'll do our week 6 picks. So it is Giants at Patriots. I'm going to say the Patriots are going to go ahead and win that game. Thursday night, that would be a good Thursday night game. Panthers.
If you want to watch the Giants get run.
Panthers at Buccaneers.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Oh, and it's a 6:30 a.m. game, so that means they're playing in England or something, and that's what's up. I like that shit. I get to watch football at work in the morning, and that's really cool.
Motherfucker, you work too much.
I think I'll take the Buccaneers on that one.
I hate to say it, but I'm gonna have to go Cam.
If he's playing that week, yeah, it's been the backup.
That's right, because he's been weird, right?
His foot's fucked up. Yeah,
so it's Bucks.
Yeah, Panthers, Buccaneers.
Yeah, I want to go Buccaneers.
And after that is Redskins at Dolphins. I'm going to go and take the Redskins on that one. Dolphins look like shit.
Yeah, I think Washington, 100%.
After that is Saints, Jaguars. Saints at Jaguars. I'm going to take the Saints. Saints away on that one. Ooh.
I'm going Jags.
Yeah, because Teddy Bridge just... Shit.
Oh, Jags been doing some interesting stuff this year.
Yep. All right, I already called it Saints, so I'm just going to stick with it. After that is Bengals at Ravens. I'm going to take the Ravens on that one.
I'm going Bengals.
And then after that is Seahawks at Browns. That's what's up.
Yeah, that's a Hawks game.
Hawks, yep. And then after that is Eagles at Vikings. I'm going to take the Eagles on that one.
I'm taking the Vikes.
Yep. And then after that, Texans at Chiefs.
Ugh.
Shit, that's a good one.
I'm going Texans.
I'm going Chiefs on that one.
Chiefs.
After that is Falcons at Cardinals.
Falcons.
Yeah, Falcons.
Cardinals are dick this year.
And after that is 49ers at Rams.
Shit. I'm going to go 180 on my gut and go 49ers. My gut's telling me no, the Rams are going to win.
I'm going Garoppolo's
Rams. Getting minus 5 points.
I'm going Rams.
Okay.
And after that, Titans at Broncos.
I haven't been watching the Titans at all this year. Are they? The Broncos are kind of garbage.
Yeah. All right, I'll go with the Broncos, I think.
All right.
That didn't feel good. I don't like that.
I'm going to go Titans, I guess.
After that is Cowboys at Jets.
I'm going to go Jets just because I like
Cowboys.
Jets.
Cowboys, Dallas.
You get a star.
After that, Steelers at Chargers. I'm going to take the Chargers at that one.
LA.
Yep, that's a Sunday night game.
Yep.
And then the Monday night is Lions at Packers. God, that's going to be a good game.
Go Pack, go.
I'm taking the Lions.
I think the Lions are going to win, but I got to go.
I think Detroit can do it. There you go.
I literally have to pee so bad I got to stand up for this.
So those are the week 6 picks. That is the last thing. I'm just going to pull up a line now.
So much better when you stand up. There's no pressure on your bladder. It's great.
Yeah, it's really weird, right?
Can you imagine we do a show for 3 hours where we stand up the whole time? I don't know if I can do that.
Let's see.
I just remember the theme for the line, and I'm thinking about what we talked about before the show, and I'm going, oh, it's too close.
Yeah, and I don't even, I want this one, but I don't know if I said it or not, so I don't want to double up, so quickly,
Well, it's either you do that or I piss my pants on camera.
All right, Colin. This cash register lady is mean, and I have anxiety. Will you buy this for me? When I'm high, I can't do this.
Definitely, because I got to pee so bad. I'll buy anything you want.